I'd like to call the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors June 27th meeting to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. At this particular time, we have we're going to be discussing the roof solar panel proposed for the Lancaster Middle High School. Excuse me.
You gonna kick it to me?
Yeah, man.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we all know that the new middle high school has been designed to hold a roof solar panel project, but we don't have any particulars on a potential roof panel provider. And Mr. Lee sits on the executive committee of the new school project, and he had a presentation a few months ago, and he told me, he said, the whole board needs to hear this. So we set this work session up for tonight for Bryce Powell with VMDO and his team to provide a presentation for you on a possible roof solar panel project for the new school.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen.
Good evening. Again, I'm Bryce Powell with VMDO. With me is Donnie Yates, our prime electrical engineer with CMTA. You know, as Don just said, we've had a number of conversations kind of around this. We have, regardless of this decision now or 20 years in the future, designed the building so that it can receive solar panels. So we've kind of set it up for success regardless of when the trigger is pulled or the need is identified. In some of the executive committee meetings with Bill, we've talked about whether it's part of the project, so we've priced it as part of the project, but it was an add-all. And then I know there's been ongoing conversations with Dominion, as well as knowing that there's other ways to procure solar panels. And so what we thought we'd do tonight is really quickly kind of run through the 2 to 2.5 ways that these are typically procured, talk through some pros and cons, what that means both from a first cost and a cost standpoint, but also kind of long-term relative to energy usage as well as ongoing savings. And then we'll tie all that into the Inflation Reduction Act portion of things relative to additional savings that might be out there. We've got a few slides that really just get into real quick kind of definitions of understanding what we're talking about, but there's really about 3 slides in here that really are the meat of the discussion. So I'm going to hand it over to Donnie, but I think also this can be as interactive as you need. I think the main point of this is to just educate you all in the ways that it can be done so that you can make the best decision possible that you're looking at doing. Any other questions that are out there, big picture, that in any conversations you all have been having, or Bill, any other summary points?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll hand it over to Donnie.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. Like Bryce said, I mean, we're going to start with a little overview of PV, the system, and components, and then kind of break it down into the options for procurement. And I think that's where a lot of the meat of the presentation really lies. So I'll get started. Introductions, Bryce kind of already took it, but I'm Donnie Yates, electrical engineer at CMTA. Bryce Powell, you all know him. Just a little bit about CMTA. We do a lot of zero energy, zero carbon projects across the country, a lot in this area, in Virginia specifically.
A lot in Northern Virginia.
Yes, a lot in Northern Virginia.
There's a big bubble there.
And part of what we do is analyze data. Oh, sorry, thank you. Analyze data, energy usage of actual schools that we built and how they use energy and where they use it, and then kind of use that for future designs and for solar system sizing especially. Yeah, this is kind of just a PV overview, so I'm going to go through the various components. I'm going to start with EUI real quick for anyone who's not familiar. We're going to touch on it briefly here in a couple slides, but it's just the energy use of the building divided by the square footage. So smaller the number, the less energy use a building uses. Just a way to quickly compare different size buildings without having to do a bunch of conversions.
It also, not applicable here, But it's also a way to compare relative energy use of a building that, say, uses electricity and a building that uses gas, right? Because they
Yes.
have different utility rates and whatnot, and so it's a way to kind of put energy usage in a single metric. But in our case, obviously, we have the building system that we have, so this is just letting us know how much the building is using per square foot per year, and then that triggers into how they size the system.
Yeah, so every type of energy use gets converted to kBTU, and then that's divided by square footage, electricity, gas, any other type of contributors. So the first place I'm going to start is how we've sized the PV system for the middle school, high school as part of that adult. So I got a couple tables up here. The one on the left is the actual system summary, so that's telling you what type of solar panels we were specifying, how many inverters, and the actual system size, which is that 741.65 kW. I'll get into a little bit more of what all these different components are, and then on the right is how we sized it. So based on our energy modeling, the school's projected to be at a 20.32 EUI. We're taking that times the square footage, and that gives us how much overall energy the system will use. We divide that by some other stuff, get a generation factor, and then we put a little bit of contingency on there. That way, as your building continues to use more energy, you know, systems degrade, the PV panels produce less energy, you still have a net zero building for that kind of system life. And like I said, part of that is just data we've seen and how to size that system. So PV modules, there's various types. There's monocrystalline, there's monofacial and bifacial. Monofacial basically produces solar on the top half. Bifacial produces solar on energy from both sides. So even stuff that passes through it, as it reflects back up, it produces energy. There's polycrystalline, and then there's some other, you know, less typical types. There's thin film, there's some paint on, there's some other things. And then in terms of efficiency, you have high efficiency panels and standard efficiency panels. And kind of the trend in the solar industry is panels have continued to get larger, more cells per panel. Just a lot of that is utility scale solar kind of pushing that and needing more energy per panel. And if anyone has questions anytime, feel free to interrupt me and ask.
I got one question right now.
Yes, sir.
The county's solar ordinance requires Tier 1 panels. How does that relate to these particular panels that would be on a roof? Are they also Tier 1, or are they something different?
Yeah, they would be tier 1. So what he's asking, there are rankings of panel manufacturers, and it really has to do with the reliability of those panels, how much panels they've sold over a given time. It's really a financial ranking. It's supposed to just kind of verify that they're reputable manufacturers. Especially early on, you'd have, you know, panel manufacturers come in and out pretty quickly as things were kind of being adopted. So that's built into the adult design we had as part of the project. The second big part of PV systems is racking. So that's the actual structure that the panels sit on the roof. Or in some cases, it's not quite as much structured as a rack. So the type of system we had at the middle school, high school is a rack system. It's ballasted. There are weighted blocks that go under this rack that hold it down on the roof. It's not structurally attached. It's not penetrated and connected to the roof in any way. It's pretty much sitting up there with stuff holding it down. There's railed systems as well. You typically see that on like metal roofs where you kind of have built-in slope and attachment points. And then there are some other non-typical systems, single point, where there are materials attached to the roof that the racks then sit on. There's roof integrated, which is kind of combined with the roofing system, and they're adhered that way to the roof. And then there's some tracking systems, which you see more as a ground mount, and they actually follow the angle of the sun and adjust. So the two red squares you're seeing, that's what we had on the middle school, high school, a racked system, 5-degree tilted.
And the important thing there is that we're not physically penetrating the roof for an attachment. So obviously, any penetration in the roof could at some point be a bad penetration.
Yeah.
And so we're just using, you know, weight essentially to handle the wind uplift that would happen on these. But it's not penetrating your roof, so you don't have that kind of longer term maintenance concern relative to that system.
What kind of wind uplift would it withstand if we had a high wind tornado, hurricane?
It's the same as the civil requirements, so it's determined by the ASC code. I don't know the exact number here, it's probably
115.
Yes,
So
115,
it's gonna
125.
be sized based on hurricane-type winds.
Yes.
They would not be sized based on tornado-type winds, which are far in excess of any structural. So the entire building, as we're in a coastal zone, has the 115 or higher relative to the wind capacity.
Yeah, and I'll say part of our design process was doing our layout and sending it to a reputable racking manufacturer, having them run calcs and make sure that we didn't need roof penetrations, just the way we were laying things out.
I would assume the building needs to be reinforced in a way to withstand the weight on the
Yeah,
roof.
so
Yeah.
we design all of our roofs that are potential PV roofs to have an additional 5 pounds per square foot of capacity in them than a normal roof would have. And then that handles the added load of the PV. So that's already built into the structure. There's no extra thing that happens to reinforce those. It's just a little bit stiffer of a roof structure.
Is there any plan to use or put PV panels over, let's say, parking spaces?
No, we were able to keep everything on the roof for the size system we wanted. Really, to get to net zero energy, everything stayed on the roof.
It's obviously an option down the road.
Yeah.
The trick with those is it ends up being slightly more expensive because then you also have to pay for the structure portion that you're putting over parking, whereas, you know, we've got essentially free structure that we're already using as the roof of the building. But it is something that down the road should, you know, you need to supplement with more. That's obviously a next easier thing instead of coming back into the building, and obviously has some added benefits if you get some covered or shaded parking as well.
Yeah, and those type of parking canopies are usually, 1.5 to 2 times as much expensive as just putting it on the roof itself that's already there. And-
How about roof repair, or I know sometimes with a flat roof, there's some tarring or painting in the future. How does it work with your solar panels? Is there a way to lift them up and get underneath of them?
Yeah, so the panels themselves sit on this rack. They can be taken off the rack, right? If you had a panel that was damaged, it could be taken off the rack and replaced.
So while the two little pyramids in the red square photo are kind of just weighted onto the roof, the panel is directly screwed to that piece, and so they could just unscrew them,
Yeah.
take up a row of panels if something needs to happen. The benefit of the way you're thinking about it right now, obviously, is that the life of the PV system is going to be in lockstep with the typical warranty life of the roof.
Yeah.
So whereas if you had a 10-year-old roof and then you're putting PVs on that would last another 20 or 25 years, you might run into the need to re-roof before the panels, get below their useful life. So marrying them
Is
up.
that like 30 years?
Yeah.
What is it 30?
Yeah, in that 20 to 30 year range. It's pretty similar to roof warranty, time periods. And that's usually what we see, you'll have the warranty on the panels anywhere from 15 to 25 years typically.
How do they access, like, say, a panel in the middle once it's like the whole array is?
So it's,
Is there enough space to walk down?
yeah,
between
there's a gap in between the rows. It's about 8 inches. It depends on the exact racking manufacturer, but it's about 8 inches. It's enough to actually walk down and get to the middle of a row if you need to. There's also walking paths every so often. Once we get to, there's a slide where we kind of show our layout. You can see the walking paths in between larger arrays and stuff.
The other thing we do with the roof design is there's basically nothing on the roof. There's plumbing vents, there's roof drains, and then because we've got a high school, there's a few lab-related rooftop mechanical units, but the main mechanical units are all inside the building, and so there's really nothing other than the roofing membrane itself that's up there that needs any maintenance or.
So all the HVAC is in a mechanical
Yes.
room?
Yeah,
Yes.
or it's not in between panels. You can easily walk up to it and don't have to walk through the rows. Even I think roof drains on this roof, because the building's so compact, we have walking paths to pretty much all of them, where you wouldn't have to go in that 8-inch gap. You'd have like a 4-foot walking path. The next big component is optimizers. This is fairly new as part of the system, but essentially what this does is it is either under every panel or it'll be shared between 2 panels. And it's doing a few things. It complies with the NEC rapid shutdown requirements. So if power is lost on site, the PV system has to shut down as well so that you're not back feeding into the grid as people are trying to get power back online. It does optimizing. So used to on solar systems, there were problems with shading where if you had shading on like 1 or 2 panels, it would kind of shut down a whole string. So it would shut down, 20 to 30 panels, where with these, it's only, if you have shading on a couple panels, that optimizer is balancing that so that the whole string is not producing less. And then it also does some multi-point power tracking. It does some other safety features that talk to the kind of brains of the system as well, which I'll get to in the next slide.
If they lose like grid power, the building doesn't power itself?
Correct,
still?
correct, yes. In this setup, we did have a design where there were batteries included and there were some abilities to go off grid, but
Is that because you have no place for the extra power to go?
yeah, there's no way, one, to isolate from the grid right now, so that's part of it. You have to disconnect from the grid. That way you aren't backfeeding. That way if people are working on the lines, they're not in danger. And then also there's nowhere to store the energy as well, so any excess or to put it anywhere else. Inverters are kind of the biggest piece of electrical equipment of the system outside of the panels. This is where all your AC power is coming in. It's being converted to DC power, and that's where you're feeding out to your panels. I got the next slide will kind of, or 2 slides from now will kind of show how that works. But essentially, you're bringing in your building grid to this point, and then it's going out to all the PV panels. And it's doing the modulation. If an array is overproducing, it's modulating that so it's not sending too much back. It's doing controls, it's doing reporting, and then I've kind of shown a picture below on the bottom right of the type of system we had specified on the middle school, high school. We wanted to show you what we had in the base bid versus the adult. So in the base bid, you all are set up to add solar whenever you so choose, if it's now or 5 years from now. So there's everything in the highlighted yellow riser diagram is included. So there's a breaker in your main switchgear that feeds to an exterior disconnect that's required by the electrical code and typically by utility as well, so they can shut that system down if they need to work on the building at all. That way, again, so it can't backfeed. And then there's a combiner panel board where all the inverter feeds come in and tie into the building itself. So all that is incorporated in the base bid. And like I said, whenever you choose to add solar, you could do it.
The benefit of that is that's already in the building, right? So even if you went a PPA route in 5 years, that's less work that needs to happen inside the building should you add PV down the road, which will just be less confusing, and Todd and company can talk about what's involved. But that just kind of puts things in place inside so that once the school's operational, we're not having to take it back apart again.
And just due to some of the code requirements, it's much more expensive and harder later if you've already installed switchgear and done infrastructure in the building to come and add that later. It's not, you just come add this breaker and a panel and you're good to go. There's a little more that's involved and easy to do up front than later. And this is actually what was included in the adult, so it's all the stuff associated with the PV system. On the left is our riser diagram for the PV system itself. So those 5 big blocks are the 5 inverters, and then coming off the inverters is the wiring from the inverter to the panels themselves. So there's typically 9 or I think 16 strings per inverter, and a string is just like it'll be 20 or 30 panels that are then wired back to that inverter, and they're wired together in series essentially, which you can see in the top right corner. You can see the actual, that's kind of like the underside of the panel. You'll see the wiring between optimizers and panels and how those are connected. And then in between that in the riser diagram is just a typical racking detail. So that's pretty much how the panels will be installed. They're sitting on top of this rack. It's angled at 5 degrees, and on the back side of the rack there's usually ballast, and then in some cases there's wind deflectors if it's like the first set of panels in a row. And then bottom right is that blown up image of one inverter where you can see the various strings going out to PV panels and then coming back in to the inverter itself. And then that kind of bottom left portion is where, or actually, sorry, top left portion is where it's going back to that PV panel board.
And don't worry, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
What kind of roof are these buildings going to have?
It's all TPO, which is a single ply. I forgot what I said. It's white. Yeah.
So now if no one else has questions about the PV system itself, we're
The
going to
only,
go.
only thing in it, this is, this is just a question, I know they stationary, but I always think they're gonna be positioned to get the maximum amount of sun doing whatever, time, because they don't move, right?
No,
I mean,
so-
not like some you see in it.
Yeah, it's a good question. So working with VMDO, all our buildings are generally oriented north-south. Our PV panels, if I go back, are all facing south. That tilt is south. So that kind of optimizes. 5 degrees generally is kind of like the sweet spot. They're kind of self-cleaning at that point. Rain will come and wash the panels off, so you don't got to clean them all the time. It gives you a good generation factor, and it also doesn't take up as much space. As you kind of tilt those panels up, they end up taking more space on the roof, and you got to leave more room between the rows.
They typically have to be washed like windows ever so often, or?
If they're flat, in this case, because they're 5 degrees, they're generally going to clean themselves. As they build up dirt, rain will come and wash it off, and because of the tilt of the panel, it'll wash off. No. If you get rain.
Not this past month.
And I'm going to come
I
back
don't
to,
know, are they susceptible to things like house where you get that like black fungus that grows on them essentially over time, and like you get on siding or mold, or?
not that I've seen, no.
Or
I mean,
pollen?
pollen?
It's just a
Yeah,
combination
yeah, I mean,
of all
pollen
those
will definitely
varieties
build up, and
combined
like I
together
said,
with bacteria
it'll
and
wash
some
off
mold.
as it
Houses
rains.
around here.
And what we're kind of talking about now is called soiling factor, right? As stuff builds up on the panels, they produce less. That's built into the way we size the system and the generation factor we're using.
They've
So,
already got glass windows to wash too, so.
so Bill, are you, so is the school thinking about pushing this down the road a little bit? Or are we just not sure what the big corporation is going
We
to do
just
for
want,
us?
we got some options, so, no, we wasn't thinking about pushing it down the road.
Okay.
Yeah, and
But
that's kind of the portion we're about to get into is,
Yeah.
is procurement and the options we typically see that school districts and governments kind of go down the path. So for the most part, there's 2 typical paths we'll see people go down. There's what's called a power purchase agreement, which I think is something that Dominion has been talking to you all about. In general, there's no upfront costs, which is usually great and a good selling point for them. But in this case, you wouldn't be eligible for IRA credits because you don't actually own the system. That system's owned by that third party who you have this power purchase agreement with.
Explain IRA credits.
Okay, we'll get there a little later, but I'll go
Okay.
quickly through it. It's basically a government incentive to do certain things. For example, geothermal, the HVAC system, there are IRA credits for choosing that system, and there's a payment that would be sent back to you once you've completed the project for going down that path. It's an incentive to do, in these cases, sustainable actions. So primarily applies to solar and the geothermal HVAC system.
And that's Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes.
I mean, is that fully understandable now? Because I know up to this point,
It's
Very-
getting more understandable. They're releasing more information as they go. But yeah, we're starting to see school districts and other clients we work with apply for and get some of those paybacks in more clear
Like
terms.
the COVID money, just write the rules as you go.
Unfortunately, that is a little bit of how it's going, just because of how fast they're doing it.
let me ask you one question, since you mentioned geothermal. We're drilling wells right now. So is it at the completion of that part of it that we can apply for credits, or?
It's completion of the overall project.
Overall.
And a lot of it is because geothermal kind of ties into everything on the HVAC side. So the overall project has to be done before you apply for that direct payment option. I'm going to keep going down the PPA
And
part.
then how do we know what's a better deal? The no cost up front or to buy outright? Is there a tool that tells us?
Oh, we're going to go through some of that. I mean, it really does depend a little bit on a lot of factors, honestly. It's not like there's just one, but it depends on the type of rate you're getting from a PPA provider. It depends on how many, like if you all put out an RFP or something to get PPA, how many bids you get on that. And then on the buy outright, it depends a little bit on how the PV numbers come in, if we were to rebid it or whatever branch determined was the best way to go through that. So yeah, it could vary a little bit.
Okay.
And we do have some slides on that.
And that was kind of the normal comparison. And then with the Inflation Reduction Act on top of it, that's kind of a third piece that
Yes.
really, you'll see in a second, makes this much more palatable to own it yourself as opposed to, because you're the ones getting the benefit of the tax credit, not the provider.
Yeah.
if that
But
makes
we're
sense.
also maintaining it now because we own it.
Correct.
Yes, that is true. The way the PPA generally works is they're putting solar on your roof and they own and maintain it. And instead of paying, Dominion a utility bill, you're paying them a reduced utility bill, right? Typically, they would own SRECs, which are just, they're credits you get for producing green energy. They can be sold, they can be kept, but it's something that there's kind of like an open market to sell and own those. The system would be maintained and owned by the PPA provider. And then the actual ROI, the return on investment for putting this PV up there is just really a comparison between that modified rate and your overall utility rate you would normally be paying. And there's some, most
zero.
PPAs have escalators that will increase that cost over time. Sorry, was there? Okay, the buy outright option is usually the second option. First cost, you're paying basically everything upfront. On this project, I think the estimate we have is $1.8 million for the overall photovoltaic system, the panels and all that. And I believe that's numbers from Branch when they did the add alternate bid. You would be eligible for the IRA credits, so at the completion of the project, you all would apply and then get a direct payment once that goes through. And generally, we'll get there, but it's 30% of the overall cost of the system. SRECs are available to the owner, so you all would get those SRECs and you could choose to sell them or keep them, whatever you chose. The system would need to be maintained and owned by LCPS, or you could get a maintenance contract as well. That's something we could put into the specifications for the system. ROI is dependent pretty much on first cost compared to utility savings and any IRA payback. And then I think a big benefit of buy outright is the PV is going to go on as the building's being built, and it would be managed by Branch and coordinated with the roofing contractor and all that stuff, which we'll get into on the next slide. But
I would
it's
say when you buy outright, you know what the costs are too.
you know the upfront
You know
cost
what
a
you-
little earlier. I mean,
We've been involved in some of these energy performance contracts that are a scam.
they generally evolve over time, right? As they're producing, like generally a PPA is going to kind of work like we do. They're going to produce drawings and submit them to you all, and they have to do permitting and all that, and stuff evolves over time, and that price can vary a little bit depending on how things develop.
What does that acronym SREC?
Meaning you're gonna pay more.
What does that acronym SREC stand for?
Sustainable Renewable Energy Credit.
Yeah. Yeah, so what you'll have is especially SRECs in a lot of the country are not very valuable, but in DC, for example, they are. You'll have companies who don't have green power, but there are benefits to having it, and they'll go buy these SRECs from other people. So this is a comparison chart we put together of the two options, buy outright versus PPA. So there's kind of 8 things we're looking at that we kind of think are the big ticket items. There's first costs, buyout rate, you pay $1.8 million, and then the PPA, you pay nothing. There's long-term savings, so return on investment, essentially. With the buy outright option, you all would see return on investment over the lifetime of the system. There's kind of a footnote at the bottom that explains what that is. With no other factors factored in, it would pay back over 19 years, so you'd have the back half of that system life. With the IRA savings factored in, it pays back in about a little under 13 years. And then when you factor in some of the other IRA savings you're already getting, it pretty much pays back as soon as you get that direct payment.
So if we looking at this, right, with the geothermal, it pay back to approximate 2 years, that's what I'm.
Yeah, and we have a slide and a couple slides that kind of shows how that works. a
Say
little
that
bit.
again. Say that again.
Because the building already has geothermal, you're already eligible for IRA tax credits on the geothermal system. So if we combine the geothermal tax credits with the additional tax credits you get for solar panels, and you put those together, the total payback return on your investment on the solar panels, it drops to 2 years. Which then, all the energy is then free coming off the panels into your building. You're paying minimal electrical You still pay a small bit to Dominion every month for connection fees and all that kind of stuff, but essentially, you've got the power from the solar panels and you're not having a power bill every
So
month.
that's factored, the geothermal savings is factored into the solar savings.
Correct.
But,
Yeah.
we've already paid for the
Yes,
geothermal.
yes, it's
so-
costs you've
Correct.
already spent at this point, yeah.
And do you know for a fact that you can combine the two?
All we're saying is that the combined money you get back, if we look at that total amount of money back as a way of paying for solar panels, then it's a 2-year return on investment, right? Because
Yeah.
there's no additional money you're putting out for geothermal, it's already in the budget.
Is this something that's like potentially not gonna be there when we get to the point, or is it already, we're in the
No,
process?
this is
and-
funded through 2036, I believe. There's an allotment of money that's already there and existing, and people are
Well, I'm
applying for it
glad
now.
you said that because, I'm glad, Jason, because it's something going on with this propane, gas thing. And I think they said that IRA ends in August or something like that. But that dealt with propane, so I'm kind of glad if you know that this is separate from that because they get some tax credits, for these people using propane or
Yeah,
something like that.
and the IRA is a big bill, right? There's different components of it. Geothermal is one part, solar is one part. The solar, the IRA credits for that have additional requirements as time goes on. So I believe at some point next year, you have to comply with some extra steps to actually get that credit. So there is some time aspect to
So
this
these
too.
credits that we would occur and own and could market or sell, how would that work?
It's based on when you start the project.
He's asking about the SREC stuff.
Oh, the SRECs?
Yeah, these credits.
Oh,
That you were
they
mentioning.
don't expire. You basically,
So is there a certain amount of credits we will have in a bank essentially?
Yeah, it's dependent on how much energy you
Well,
produce.
there's two things. So the IRA is a one-time tax credit payment
Yes.
back to either the county or the school system. The SRECs are,
They're like carbon credits.
they're
right?
like
Yes,
carbon
yes.
credits based on what you produce per month.
Yes.
You
So
get
if
a-
Amazon wants to be more green, they can go and buy credits
Correct.
from whoever's
Correct.
producing. or
Correct.
That's right.
Like community solar or something like
That's
that. But, so we'll be sitting on essentially a pot of money.
Yes.
What is it gonna be valued at and what is it gonna be worth?
It really depends.
And if we put more panels in, does the value of those panels give us more credits and more value to sell down the future, or?
The SRECs kind of have, the rate's going to vary, but generally it's a flat rate. I don't know that they're going to be worth a ton of money in this region,
A little
but
bit of law of diminishing returns, I think,
Yeah.
in terms of adding more panels.
Yeah, because I was wondering, say, us sitting here, who would we actually be selling it to?
Well,
I can
that's-
see it in Northern Virginia, DC or somewhere like that, but who would?
Well, I don't think it matters where you are.
It
It's
doesn't
kind of
matter.
like forest credits or all these, if it's like you can offset. Somebody who can't put in solar panels buys power or
Correct.
buys credits
Yes.
from somebody who can. And then therefore, they're technically greener because some of their power
Right.
is coming from.
yes.
The other reason to not install solar panels is because the amount of money you get back from Dominion for producing more power than you're using, they're not giving you 15 cents per kilowatt back. You're getting a negotiated, I don't know
Well,
what it is, but.
it's part of the way the utility rates are structured, right? So in most commercial buildings now, you have two types of charges. You have KWH charges, so that's an amount you're billed based on how much energy you use, but you also have demand charges, which is based on peak energy use. So solar's not always going to offset that peak energy use. You're still going to have time where your building's using a lot of energy, but you're not producing a lot of solar, right? It's a cloudy day, or it's at night, or you got a big basketball game, stuff like that. So if you're putting too much back on the grid, you're not going to be compensated for that. So there's kind of a balance there.
But going back to those credits, do you have a number of how many credits we will have and what the potential value of?
I
those
don't. I
credits
could
be?
get you a number based on what we're estimating the system to produce, but it's generally just you get a credit per how much you produce. So it would vary a little bit, even year to year.
And then, like, I don't know how we would sell those.
Are those credits contingent upon the state's participation in the program, or are these national programs?
The credits are basically given to you if you produce the energy, and then
Okay.
there's a market you can sell them on.
Okay.
Not that they'll be worth a ton necessarily, but it's extra stuff that's sitting there. Yeah.
Okay.
And we have some numbers later, and like the ROA numbers, I'm not really putting that in there. I'm really doing utility savings and IRA stuff to calculate the ROI and not the SRECs. So on the PPA side, the long-term savings are dependent on that variable, that modified rate you get and the escalation over time. So we have some example slides on some examples on the next two slides that kind of show that when it's actually beneficial in terms of ROI. The other thing that I think is a big thing is which way you go down, if you can meet the net zero energy goals that we have on this project. So based on the system we've designed, yes, because we have an energy model that we've used to calculate the energy use, and we sized the PV array on that. With a PPA, you have a lot less ability to tell them how much solar to put on your building, and we found a lot of times that you don't always get the amount of solar you need to hit those goals.
Which you'll see on the next.
Yeah, you'll
slide,
see,
too.
like I said, we have some examples that kind of show some of that.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So because it's their investment, they're gonna a lot of times, they're only gonna put panels where it's gonna get 100% of sun. Like if it's shaded for 1 hour, they're not gonna do it because from an investment standpoint on their end, that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
Installing that
From a building
panel,
owner
yeah.
standpoint, you're still getting, 7 good hours of sun on it, and that's
Yeah.
helping you particularly over 30 years.
SRECs available to the owner in the buyout right option. And the PPA option, they can be available to the owner, but generally you're going to pay a higher rate to own those. So it's usually not worth it. IRA eligible and the buyout rate option, you all are eligible for those that direct payment, and the PPA option, like I said, because you all don't own the system, you're not eligible to get that payback. In terms of maintenance, if you all buy the system, you'd have to maintain the system or purchase a maintenance contract, which, like I said, we could kind of bake into the project. And generally, the cost on that is going to be between $10 to $15 a watt, and I have that estimate in there based on the system size. So that'd be an annual payment for maintenance that would be built in. If you go the PPA route, they own the system, so they maintain the system.
The other way to look at that, though, is let's say you got the IRA savings and it's a 2-year payback on the solar system. Then your annual energy savings, because you have the solar panels as opposed to paying Dominion for power, would more than easily cover your maintenance contract, right? So you're still saving money long-term, even if you are responsible for maintenance of the panels, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that maintenance contract, just like on our estimates, is probably like 10% of the savings in utilities you'd see annually. So, in terms of construction coordination, if you all bought the panels as part of the project, then Branch would be able to do that coordination and, coordinate the panels going on the roof as the roof is being installed, coordinate any roof penetrations with the roof installer and any of the other, the electrician, all that stuff. In a PPA scenario, in pretty much every case we dealt with, the PPA provider doesn't want to be installing their stuff around another CM or GC. They want to come in after the building is built and do that installation. So you don't get that same level of coordination. You got to get the roofer back out there to warranty stuff and do that coordination. And it generally ends up being a headache in construction too, because you're getting those PPA designs that aren't fully done, and they're trying to coordinate what they can.
So our last school that we just put panels on in Arlington, the panels didn't go on for another 2 years after the building opened. And they took over half of a parking lot to be the staging area while school was in session. And so it was a major pain for the school once the building was open to then wait for the panels. So there's kind of those silly little logistical things that kind of factor in sometimes too.
Why was it a 2-year wait? Was it their choice, or the contractor couldn't get
It
there?
was a procurement.
Some of it was procurement, some of it was what we're talking about where, they came on post-construction or doing the design and, going back and forth on what's going to go in and how to do it, and it ends up taking time and effort. And part of that too, any extra time you wait kind of offsets that roof warranty and PV warranty stuff, where you could end up in a situation where your roof needs to be replaced, but your PV is not quite ready to be replaced or still functional, so.
Have you all, this is a question where another solar company came in and did the work on the school you just constructed?
So they designed the idea of the system, but that's really just a guide for the PPA provider. So they'll use that to kind of bid the project, but then they will go through their own design process analyze the roof, analyze the shading, and so that all takes time. And then they order the panels, you wait for them to be delivered, and then they install them. So there's that lag time.
So, and I'm gonna go back a little. So, you know, in like all the stuff we put in our base bid is based on the layout we did and how we think the solar would be layout. In the scenario where a PPA comes in, this could need to be changed or modified slightly, depending on how they see fit for it to be installed. And that's also kind of part of what extends that time to get it installed, is we may have done something one way based on our design, and they have a different, you know, way of doing it or thinking about it. And then the last one we'll talk about is procurement. So in the scenario where you all buy it outright, Branch would handle that procurement and the bidding portion of it. And through a PPA, you all would need to kind of manage that and go out to an RFP to get, you know, bids on putting together a power purchase agreement and then evaluate those and move forward. The next two slides are some PPA payback / net zero energy examples. This slide has to do with an elementary school in Virginia that we worked on. These are 3 bids that came in, and they're kind of evaluated based on the price, the overall system size, and whether they met the project goals. So the top table is the actual kind of definition of the PPA, what system size they wanted, the production they needed, and then the cost. And then the bottom table is an assessment we did on whether things were meeting their goals. Generally, if it's red, it's not meeting their goals. If it's yellow, it's close. If it's green, it met its goals. So the first 2 examples you'll see did not meet the net zero energy goal on these projects. And on the first example, it also didn't pay back over time. So that actual rate they were getting didn't, you know, pay back versus the normal utility rate you would be paying. The second example, the rate did pay back. They saved money annually, but it didn't meet their goals. And then the third option both met the net zero energy goals and paid back over time. So there was an ROI. And then this second slide is another project for the same owner. It's a high school instead of an elementary school. I won't go into as much detail, but you'll see all 3 of them both didn't meet the net zero energy goal, and it didn't return investment over time. So this is just some information on what we've seen from PPAs in doing this type of stuff. This is kind of one of our sample introduction slides to the Inflation Reduction Act, which we've been kind of talking about previously. It's essentially an extension of the investment tax credit, which didn't used to be applicable to not-for-profit owners and government entities. Part of the IRA was extending that to school districts, governments, people like that. It's generally a 30% base tax credit on, in this case, geothermal and solar. And then there's adders to that. So if you're in an energy community, a brownfield site, there's a 10% increase. So instead of 30, it goes to 40%. And there's a map that tells you whether or not you are. Lancaster County is not. And then there's a bonus 10% as well if the components of that system are manufactured domestically.
What were you saying about the energy incentive, the 10%?
That middle one, the energy community, you'll see it's grayed out. It doesn't apply to us because Lancaster County isn't an energy community. But if your project is
energy community mean?
Generally, like if it's an old coal site or if it's largely powered by coal, stuff like that. And
you said brownfield sites are also eligible? So
yeah.
we develop solar on a dump?
There's some low income
It would be
sites.
incentivized by 40%?
If you did what now?
If you're saying if this is on brown sites, so is a dump site considered a brown site?
I don't believe so, no. Like I said, the Department of Energy has like an interactive map where you can go kind of look if your project is in one of those sites. Lancaster County isn't.
The old landfill.
It tends to be old industrial.
Yeah.
We own the 3 counties own a landfill together now, and it's just basically a brownfield that we have to pay and maintain it. We could put solar on it and get paid
It's
for it.
worth looking at the
Maybe
map to
something
see
we
if
could
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
flags or not.
I don't think a lot of this area of Virginia is, but it is worth looking at. And you can, if you search like Inflation Reduction Act, DOE, Energy Community Map, you'll be able to find the map, and you can zoom into to any area of the country and see whether it would apply. And then
They
like
may not know it's a dump site there.
True.
We know how our broadband maps are.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Somehow they have a map to get a bill to you, but they don't know where anybody is.
And then we have the domestic manufacturing highlighted. We won't meet it with the solar, but we most likely will with the geothermal, just the components of that system. Solar stuff, a lot of the panels and stuff are manufactured overseas and not in America. I think this is kind of the biggest slide of the whole presentation. This is what we would call, if we were presenting earlier in the project, we'd call value stacking, right? So in this project, if you all were going buy outright, you would spend an additional 1.8 million on solar, which is that gray graph. And then in 2 years when the project completes, because you've already done the geothermal, you get an IRA tax savings for that, which we're estimating at $3 million. And it's based on 30% of the overall HVAC system cost. There's some plumbing, electrical costs that go in that as well. And then if you pursued solar, you'd get an additional 30% on the 1.8 million. And then at the end of the project, getting geothermal and solar into the project, you have a positive 1.8 million. You have that 1.8 minus the 3.6 from the geothermal and solar direct payments.
This is a better slide than you showed us a couple weeks ago.
Well, we changed it a little bit with your feedback. Yeah. If anyone has questions on this, let me know.
What's involved with battery storage and why it's not in our program with the benefits or the cons?
We had it as an option in the alternate,
Yeah, and that's why we left it on the slide, is we did design it and have it as an option.
but right now with the way the schedule has gone, and I think it's already been released, we had to make a decision of whether or not to go with the battery backup or just a traditional generator. And all that was feeding into releasing the main electrical gear and all that good stuff. You can speak maybe a little better, Todd, but.
Yeah, so it was more about, if we didn't release the gear, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this gear running around almost 4 months,
Yeah.
something like that to get, so it's what we can say. So it's.
If you can come to the mic.
It was more about releasing materials and trying to meet the schedule to get the school open on time. So we had to make a decision whether, so you're already paying for the generator, it was included in the plan. And to delay that was going to delay our switchgear, which means we wouldn't have been able to open the school on time. So it was kind of a discussion of, this was ongoing, whether you're going to go with solar or not, but the solar is still able to be going to the building, but we just needed to make sure that we could get this material, the gear on time. So the generator you were already paying for was already included in the package for the budget that we had, so it was, kind of made sense. I think we talked about it with the executive committee for 2-3 months probably, to try and decide, what was the best cost for the school at the time, and
Would it be cost effective if, let's say, some years later, we come back and look at that being added?
I think so, and that's the thing,
Yeah.
is it's available to be done, that they already did the design, we already priced it, I think it was 700,000, I think is where we, something like that.
Yeah, so-
For the battery backup, it was just, so there was, where the generator was gonna go, that's where the battery backup was gonna go, so there was a lot of different, we have to build a
Yeah.
pad for that, so once the pad's there, there's some savings also as well, and I think it's something you can certainly do and always upgrade, because the system's ready for it, right? It's just a matter
Yeah,
of-
there would be some amount of rework required, a little bit, but for the most part, it would be swapping the generator out with battery storage and doing some controls to manage that. Because there are some controls you have to put in so that you can do that islanding and charge the battery while you're off grid and do some other things.
benefit of that is, again, if you lose power at that point.
Would the
Yeah.
battery allow for us to be powered while the?
Yeah, and that's
or
why
the
we
PVs
originally
would still
designed it
work
that
if the
way.
power went out?
Yeah, because the battery can charge and store and offload or be charging, right? It can send energy to the building if you have no power, or it can store energy, right? If the solar was fully powering the building, the battery could take some of that excess energy. But a generator, you can't feed back onto the generator, and it's not as interactive as a
Was it
battery
a
is.
diesel generator?
Yes,
A
yes,
diesel generator?
yes. But that's the reason those two slides are grayed out. We left them there just as reference because they are.
And what was the cost of the diesel generation?
You know, if they, I could give you a guess. It's probably gonna be about half of what the battery was, $200,000 to $300,000 range.
Again, but they also got to factor in the maintenance of that and diesel fuel costs, whereas a battery, you have maintenance, but you don't have no fuel costs. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done those calculations or metrics, but
Is that something you would recommend we would look at later?
Or is the ball already?
On the
rolling
battery
now?
Yes.
side?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Sounds like
mean,
it's too late now, though.
It's too late now,
it's too
but
late
later.
for the opening of this
Uh-huh.
building to do it, but I mean, it's something that could be done at a later time. Like, for example, if you have this, extra 1.8 million in 2 years from the IRA savings, you could look at swapping out the generator for a battery backup system, for example.
Would you suggest that? Would you think it would be
I
worthwhile to do that?
It sounds like if the building's gonna open on time, we gotta keep.
Oh, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about
You
after
just
the
mean,
building's
yeah,
open,
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's something that would be worth looking at, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of benefits. The reason we designed the battery is, a lot of it has to do with, just resiliency of the building, right? If you lose power, you could, depending on the size of the battery and the size of your solar system, keep running the school pretty much at full load for a longer period of time, whereas a generator has X amount of fuel and it's gonna run for 24 hours or however much fuel it has, and it's only operating select loads.
30% fill rate.
Yeah, whereas the battery, the way we had it set up, could power both emergency loads and the entire building, depending on how much solar was coming in, how charged the battery was, all that stuff.
But I would assume we have risk with those batteries, as we heard from Dominion, if there's a fire or something happens.
Yeah, in the-
You just basically let it burn.
In the battery, so the system we had designed, the batteries are in a self-contained unit on the exterior, but similar to a generator, right? It's in an enclosure. They're not attached to the building. There's a fire suppression system built into that
It's like a
container.
tractor trailer box.
It's basically a shipping container.
Yes.
Yeah. There are, the battery store stuff is still pretty new. It's kind of more similar to where solar was maybe 10 or 12 years ago. We're starting to see some more nicer looking enclosures and more like switchgear, right? That aren't quite just a shipping container with stuff in it.
So have you all did a school with battery backup?
No, we've not had one. We've designed some, obviously, like this school, but we've not had one where the bid was accepted and it came in at the right time. There are some, I know there's some hotels and some hospitality spaces where the cost actually works out better, especially if you already need a generator. If you're like a high rise and your generator has to go on the top floor because you don't have room on the ground, that's where the battery starts about to be the same cost and makes a lot of sense. So we have seen some projects like that have gone through with it and replaced the generator outright with a battery.
Would there
Those
be
are
any?
also building types that have a higher percentage of their load on the generator.
Yes.
And so the
Yeah.
generator gets to be larger.
And
Would there
generally,
be any possibility for a PBE for the battery storage later on, perhaps?
PPA.
Yeah. Just for that portion, or?
I'm not aware of a PPA to do battery storage.
I'm
They
thinking
don't
probably-
need it because it's really just buying something. It's not like you're negotiating a rate with Dominion or somebody, right? That's what the PPA is about, is finding that sweet spot between what they get and what you get.
Yeah.
Whereas this would be just a straight purchase and a swap.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And there's not really like a payback necessarily that the person buying it would get. You'd probably just be paying more money.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Dominion's backup power storage, and they're putting in battery power in their storage. Doesn't really matter where they put those battery storage as long as they have them feeding back into the
Well,
grid.
they're interested in their own storage,
Yeah.
right? They probably would not be interested in your storage because that means that you're not pulling from them as much as you would without it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're thinking about utility grade storage where, the power goes out and they've got something they can
Yeah.
feed.
I mean-
Yeah, I'm just thinking in the future that
Yeah.
battery power will kind of replace their sort of like gas-powered substations that they have, kind of that feed in more additional power when needed, or?
I'm
So
sure
that
they
would be
will.
like
Like, I know
micro-
utilities are introducing that, especially as you add renewable energy, right? You want a way to store that if you're producing more than the grid needs at a given time. But for you all, the real benefit is being able to disconnect from Dominion's power altogether.
Yeah.
Which isn't something they're gonna be interested in, right? So,
They're not here.
They're everywhere.
we really have this one last slide. It kind of ties into the buy outright option. It is slightly different, but it's most similar to that option. You could do very similar to what you all have done in some other instances. It's an energy savings performance contract. Essentially, you all would get a loan for this energy savings of the solar system, and then you pay back that loan over time with the energy savings from the solar system. You'd still own the system, so you'd still be eligible for the IRA tax savings, and because it's an energy savings performance contract, that contractor would maintain and own the system. So it's a little bit more best of both worlds in some cases, but it may not be as easy in terms of procurement with branch and things.
It will end up being more expensive than what they claim, and we'll pay more. I guarantee you.
It depends on who does
I
it.
don't care
yeah.
who does it, I guarantee you it will end up at the end, it will cost more, and we'll pay more.
We haven't had very good history with performance contracts.
Yes, yes, understood.
But
We
the
just,
main
we just
benefit-
wanted to lay it out there, because the real benefit is that you don't have that same upfront cost, right? Which I'm sure is how it's been sold to you all before, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, but these companies couldn't exist if they're not making money, so I mean.
oh, yeah, and it's kind of the same thing with the PPAs, right? The intent is, ideally, it's a happy marriage, but a lot of times it's
And they sell it
to
as
make
it's gonna be
profit.
easy for us, and you don't have to do anything, you just sit back, collect the savings, and at the end, you'll make more money than what it costs to, for us to management. It doesn't work out that way, or hasn't worked out that way for any of the ones we've been in. We've paid more, and it's been some kind of bureaucratic disaster. So I'm not in favor, I'm more in favor of just
The buyout, right?
buy it on,
Yeah.
add it on to the cost of the building and but make the decision and move on.
Yeah.
Y'all handle it and put them on when we're building it.
That's right.
And get a maintenance contract.
I think it's a
Yeah.
big advantage of doing it while we're doing it, you know.
Well, you guys have certainly been selling that the whole night, so, just curious, what is the percentage rate of buy outright versus leasing that you guys see
In the marketplace?
in the marketplace? And I'm not gonna hold you to a
You know
number.
what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
He's just saying, the number of projects out there, what's the percentage that goes PPA versus buyout?
Oh, yeah, for school districts, I would say the majority of them, and keep in mind, this is before, I mean, IRA is pretty new, right?
Yeah.
So the majority of them have gone PPA, but it's solely because there's not been that ability to get a good ROI on solar. So the PPA often is, sold as
And they're
much
often
better.
too adding solar onto a building that they built years ago or.
Most
Not
school
new
districts are saying
construction.
we can add solar to a project at no upfront cost, which generally they don't have that money to spend upfront, or they would have bought it outright as part of the project.
The real game changer is the ability for the Inflation Reduction Act tax credit that really
And-
changes the mathematic
and
portion.
Right now, we have leadership that's pretty green. That could change 4 years, 2 years.
And-
Do we see, I know it's hard to look in the future. but we
Well, this is
feel-
congressionally passed, so.
Yeah, this is passed already. Like I said, it's funded through 2036, I believe. I mean, there's funding through that time period. The solar's funded, the geothermal stuff is funded.
I guess my next question is, that person that we can contact that understands this RA,
Yeah.
we gonna have to.
Yeah, and I can talk to that a little bit. So essentially, your project ends, branch has supplied you the cost of all the geothermal and solar, if you go down there at all this, so that you can file. You would hire it's essentially a tax consultant, which is not something you all would normally need, right? Because you're not normally filing taxes. They would put all that information together, submit it like a tax return, and then once the IRS has gone through it and done their thing, you would get a direct payment. Because you're not getting a tax return, right? They would give you a direct payment for that amount, which in general is going to be 30% of the overall cost of the systems that are applying for the credit.
So what's the average cost of that
It's-
tax consultant?
At $50,000 to $100,000, I think is what we've seen. And we have some people we can recommend to you, because I mean, if you all don't go with solar at some point as a buyout option, you're still going to want to pursue this for the geothermal.
Right.
Right, so. And what Bryce was talking about, the IRA for the solar makes a big difference, but where we really see the benefit is we've already been able to convince owners that geothermal is kind of the right choice for a lot of reasons, right? Maintainability, energy savings. So when you're already making that choice and you're getting the savings, you can use it to also do solar and kind of stack those savings. So I think that's what we've really seen be the game changer, because geothermal also is a new IRA thing that's available to schools.
The maintenance service contract estimate that I saw up there was 7,500 to 11,500, I think,
Yeah, I can go-
annually.
Yes.
You know, just the power bill monthly for a building that size is probably going to be very close to that,
Yeah.
you
yeah.
know? So, I mean, basically, maybe 1 or 2 months of an average power bill would pay for that maintenance contract.
Yeah.
So,
You agree with that, Travis?
Oh, yeah, very well. It would be much more than that.
Do you know what the,
The electric
do
bill,
you know what the
yeah.
average bill
Yeah.
on the high school is now?
At the elementary school, the old middle school, we're running around 10.
Yeah. Something.
Per month, yeah.
I-
Yeah, the high school is probably a little bit less than that, but not much.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that, you know, this school, energy-wise, will use less energy than typical school, but still, it'll be, you know, this is probably, I'd say, worst-case scenario, 10% of the overall utility savings. So you'd pay that back in a month or two, in all
Yeah,
likelihood.
Right. That's what I saw when I saw that.
Yeah. And I mean, maintenance contracts for specific equipment is pretty common for school districts. You see it with
Yeah.
generators and stuff like that all the time, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any additional questions, gentlemen? Well, unless there's not any more questions, I'd like to thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
it was helpful. We can obviously answer any questions that come up later if they do. You know where to find us. We're not going anywhere, but,
Yeah.
I had a lot of questions in the beginning, but you've answered them, most of those that I've had, well,
So
all
what
of
is
those
the-
that I've had.
Well, but my obvious question would be, you know, when do we need to pull the trigger and make a decision on
Yes.
this?
I would recommend, if you all are gonna rebid this out, right, and do the buy outright option, that you try and have something, you know, a bid back by the end of the year. That'll give, one, the awarded, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that'll give you all time to coordinate, get shop drawings, coordinate with the roofing manufacturer, do all that stuff in a timely manner, and I'll give this to you.
I just finished up a PV addition to a fire station that we're doing, and it was estimated at 9 months for us to get the panels, and we're at 12 months right now. That's just, it's delaying, so the 12 months is about where we want to be. We'd want to have clear direction within the 12 months, so we can get this ordered and make sure that we're not delaying the process.
So that's an example, if we went PPA, right?
no.
Okay, if we buy it outright, you saying 12 months?
I need roughly 12 months to be able to get them here and make sure that we can get everything on the roof with the install. It's going to be
So,
probably 30 days of install.
so we looking at, if we did it today,
6 months, you got 5 months.
But I mean, Branch has all the drawings already. I think
Yeah.
rebidding
Yeah.
wouldn't take them very long.
It's not going to take us so much.
The P, if you're asking how long it would take to do the PPA.
well, you probably don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, like I said, you all have to put together an RFP,
Yeah.
solicit bids, get the bids,
Months
evaluate
and
the
months
bid.
and
Yeah,
months.
Dude,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's probably best case scenario by the time you have someone on board sometime in 2025.
School will be open.
They, once you get them on board, they still have to do a design and actually install it and wait for these guys to get off site and do all that stuff.
Is there
Well,
anything, Donnie, with the IRA about
guess
whether or
it's his
not a
time.
bid and a contract is signed in this calendar year versus
Yeah.
the next calendar year?
Yeah, and that's part of why I recommend, like I said, as time goes on, this, the solar IRA savings are gonna be dependent on doing the domestic content credit, not just doing the solar at all. So if you wait too long into 2025, you could be required to they basically comply with Buy American Made, which is pretty difficult and more expensive on solar.
Well, I know we don't have to talk to the board members now. I know we don't have to make a decision today, but we've heard information, we've asked questions. Do you think it would be beneficial to us to go ahead and make a decision? Or do we want to wait, let's say, until next month?
Nothing's going to change my mind. I'm fine to make the decision, as I just said, like,
Well,
just
you
tell
know-
them to go ahead and add it to the project and get
Well,
going
I
on
mean,
it.
the contract that Branch has is with the school board. So it's a school board decision, but I think the school board wants to know that the Board of Supervisors
Right.
is behind them on this.
That's the decision we're gonna make. Are we
Yeah.
gonna stand
Yeah, I
behind
mean,
this?
we have to pay the bill, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Smith, what do you think?
We on track, Travis? What we saying up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would rather
I'll
see
say
us,
yes, so I'll say yes.
I would rather see us buy it outright.
Okay.
Yeah, I would too.
You would too? All right, so we all in agreement then with that. Do we need a motion for that, or we just saying that we agree?
I mean, it's always better to make a motion,
It
sure.
is.
Then
all
can we
right.
send a recommendation to?
Well, yeah,
the
I've
school
said,
board?
yeah, send a recommendation to the school board
Then we buy
to,
the
to go with the
solar
solar panels, and then the rebidding will take place by branch, and then we'll know an exact number to increase the capital improvement budget by.
Right.
To cover this.
Yeah.
I make that motion.
Okay. All right, you heard the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. That's a unanimous vote, motion passed unanimously. Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I appreciate Donnie and Bryce coming. There's a couple things I'd like to add. I didn't get a chance to introduce Todd Demetrio and Colin Gooch. Colin's been sitting back here quiet the whole meeting. But these guys have been great working with me as far as the construction of the building. Todd represents, he's the Director of Operations for Branch Builds, which is a big company. And to have him come down to this meeting, it's a huge statement for me. So I appreciate Todd making the trip down. And Colin's the one that's kind enough to hand us the bills every month. So I'm about to take a good, long look at Colin.
Got one today.
All in all, I felt like it was a strong presentation. I appreciate Donnie. He came from Kentucky, right? So I appreciate him making the trip. It's pretty clear to me, the way we need to go, but, I wanted you all to see it.
All right.
And, I think you made a good, sound decision tonight, so I appreciate your vote in that direction.
Mr. Pittman.
We're only gonna get one shot at this to get it done and get it done right.
There's two things I can attest to. The coordination, we've touched on the coordination a lot. I dealt with the coordination with Honeywell. We put the roof on the elementary school and then put HVAC equipment on top. It's not a good, that was not a good series of things. That COVID money came into play on that, and that was one of the reasons that played out. But having this as part of the process will make things go a lot smoother. So, the other thing I want to touch on, just so everybody understands, the IRA credit for the geothermal. It's not just the geothermal system, it's everything that touches the geothermal that we can get that credit on. So Bryce he keeps reminding me of this. That number's, if it's $3 million for the geothermal system, it's a $12 million when everything it touches. So our credit for adding geothermal is going to be a big number.
Yeah,
Now, I hope that the same guy would be able to work with us on those credits, because that'll happen at substantial completion. So we'll complete the project, and then that's when we'll go into getting the credits back.
yeah, and we're not tax consultants, obviously. We have rules of thumb for kind of calculating that estimated 3 million, but I think we tried to stay on the conservative side based on the budget numbers we had. We didn't, like you said, it's everything it touches, so there's some electrical and plumbing and other stuff that factors into that number that we didn't necessarily try and take into account.
All right. Mr. Pittman, question. How soon do you think once the board realized that we're in favor of that, they would take action?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, how soon do you think they would?
That's my job.
Okay, all right, good. All right, so I know, okay. And then.
He
all
said
right,
tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Yeah.
okay. Then how soon will you all get started, Branch?
We've already done a big lift, right? I mean, so it's just a matter of him giving us direction to go ahead and proceed. And we've already bid it out several different times. We have all the trade partners.
And if we need to provide Branch with some updated drawings that are packaged in a different way, we're happy to do that. I mean, as soon as we have the path.
We did it assuming that there was this possibility the whole time, right? That's what we were in close coordination with Bryce and CMTA during that process, understanding that this was a possibility. We just had budget concerns to get to the budget that the county had for the school.
Yeah.
And this was the idea to come up with, move this out, but understanding that this is possible. So
Okay.
we've priced it several different ways. We have the trade partners on board, talk to them, continue to talk to them. So it's not if you go this early, we can be done in a month by August. We're going to send drawings to you back by October, and we'll release material well ahead of time.
Okay, good.
Coordination to begin. And I think one of the things we didn't touch on a little bit there is the warranty issues with us not doing this work. You already made the decision, so I need to go into it, but we're warranting the work that we did. If you bring somebody else to come on and do that work afterwards, obviously, they're not concerned about the roof. They're concerned about getting this material in place to start to charge you for what they've done, this transaction. This instance, we're warranting that as we go through, so it's all going to be understood that this is going on there. We're warranting what's going on because we've had it in our contract. So it's a different ballgame
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're gonna recess until the 7th. I call the Lancaster County June 27th Board of Supervisors meeting back to order. The first thing I want to start with is to recognize some students from Lancaster High School. But before we recognize them, we're going to take care of a couple of resolutions. We'll look at 2 resolutions, and then we'll recognize the students. The first resolution is a resolution, read this for me.
This is a resolution adopted by the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors recognizing state champion Roy Lally, girls track and field 800 meters. Whereas Roy Lally is a, let me swallow real quick.
Yeah, the same problem I'm having.
I put butterscotch in my,
That's why I handed it off to him.
Mr. Palin, don't ever do that again. Where's Roy Lally? Okay. Sorry about that, Roy. No, I'm not. We're going to get this right. This recognizes state champion Roy Lally, girls track and field 800 meters. Whereas Roy Lally is a freshman at Lancaster High School and is a highly accomplished and decorated runner with the Lancaster High School girls indoor and outdoor track teams, which are led by Coach Joanne Webb-Ferry. And whereas Roy Lally was Northern Neck District and Region 1A champion in the girls 800 meters and qualified for the Virginia High School League Class 1 state championship meet. And whereas Roy Lally claimed the Virginia High School League Class 1 state championship in girls 800 meters with a personal best time of 2:26:33. And whereas Roy Lally also placed 5th at the Virginia High School League Class 1 state championship in girls 1600 meters and scored 14.75 of Lancaster's team total 22 points at the state meet. That's pretty amazing, Roy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County hereby recognizes the exemplary dedication and determination of and expresses its admiration to Roy Lally for outstanding accomplishments attained this season, culminating as Virginia High School League's Class 1 state champion in girls 800 meters, and be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution expressing the sense of Lancaster County Board of Supervisors on this matter be conveyed to the Lancaster County School Board, the Lancaster High School Athletic Director, and spread upon the meeting minutes of said Board of Supervisors, adopted this 27th day of June 2024.
Gentlemen, I move that we adopt this resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Let me see
All right,
if I can
second
see this one to read it.
You want a butterscotch?
Resolution adopted by the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors recognizing the 2024 state champion Lancaster High School boys track and field team. Whereas the 2024 Lancaster High School boys track and field team was the Northern Neck District and Region A champion and qualified for the Virginia High School League Class 1A state championship meet. And whereas the 2024 high school boys track and field team scored 87.5 points at the state meet, broke a state record in shot put, and claimed its second straight Virginia High School League Class 1 state team championship. And whereas the 2024 Lancaster High School boys track and field team was led by Coach Draper Washington and assistant coaches Marcus Ferguson, James Tim, Tyrell Henderson, and Joanne Webb-Ferry, and consisted of the following student athletes and their state accomplishments: Reese Rhodes, state champion and record holder shot put, state champion discus; Matthew Kane, second place 800 meters, second place 1600 meters, third place 4x 800 meter relay team, and fourth place pole vault. Devon Smith, second place 4x400 meter relay team, third place triple jump, fourth place 4x 100 meter relay team. Josh Woolard, second place 4x400 meter relay team, third place 4x800 meter relay team, and eighth place in the 800 meters. Creston Saunders, second place in the 4x400 meter relay team, fourth place in the 4x100 meter relay team. Tylen Lee, second place in the 4x400 meter relay team. Trey John Waddy, third place in the 4x800 meter relay team, and fourth place in the 300 meter hurdles. Brooks Parker, third place in the 4x800 meter relay teams. Zayden Vini, fourth place in the 4x100 meter relay team, fourth place in the 110 meter hurdles, and sixth place in the 300 meter hurdles. Lawrence Harding, fourth place in the 4x100 meter relay team. Lawrence Vini, fifth place discus, seventh place shot put. Tyler Rhodes, eighth place discus. Jaden Crockett, eighth place high jump, and William Ball. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Lancaster County hereby recognize the exemplary dedication and determination of and express its admiration to the 2024 Lancaster High School Boys and Track and Field Team for their outstanding accomplishments attained this season, culminating with back-to-back Virginia High School League State 1 state championships. And be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution expressing the sense of the Lancaster County Board of Supervisors on this matter be conveyed to the Lancaster County School Board, Lancaster High School Athletic Director, and be spread upon the meeting minutes of said Board of Supervisors. I move for adoption of this resolution.
All right, you heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Motion passed unanimously. Okay, at this particular time, board members, let's go down and present. I'm asking Ms. Laddie to come forward. She is here.
You represent Joey? Yes.
Come right in.
Hey, how are you?
And we have all right, the other track members. You earned it. Come on, there. Come on, Bill. Come on, Bill.
The kneelers.
That's why he wants me, because I don't have a lot.
We're gonna have to add on to a new school for all these plaques.
Can we get AI to read them for us?
At least the print is big enough for me to see.
Yeah, I know.
Next one, next we're gonna have the public input session. And you have 3 minutes to talk about anything that you want to talk about to this board that's not already on the agenda. All right, so at this particular time, the public input session is open. Does anybody want to have anything to say?
Your treasurer does.
Okay.
And I am coming to you this evening as your treasurer, gentlemen. After 10 years serving as the Tidewater District Chair, and then followed by 5 years as a Board of Director member for the Treasurers Association of Virginia, I, your treasurer, have been installed as the second Vice President of the Treasurers Association of Virginia.
Congratulations.
And I just wanted you all to be aware of that, from me personally and not elsewhere, so, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, congratulations.
She's in line to be president as Jason was of VACO.
Oh,
So she'll, in 2 years or less, depending on circumstances, Bonnie would fall in line to be president of the Treasurers Association.
And host our annual conference.
Yeah.
Okay. Jason put it, host, and host the annual conference.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
We certainly
Putting
read
us on the
leaders,
map.
don't we?
Okay. Anyone else? Anybody online? All right, public input session is now closed. Now we go into the VDOT.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's been a few months since I've been here. Maybe I should reintroduce myself. I'm David Beal. I'm the resident engineer from Northern Neck. I think I was at a conference in April and I was on vacation in May, but you guys are in really good hands down here with Mike, so I knew I didn't have much to worry about. But it's good to be back with you. I saw some of you at the Triway Trail launch, so it was a nice turnout down there. But Mike's been busy. He and his crew, they've cleaned ditches on Newtown Road and on Fleets Bay. They replaced a pipe on Sunset Drive. They've been cleaning pipes countywide. They've kept up with potholes, sign repairs, and work orders. The mowing is now complete on both primaries and secondary routes. The sidewalk on King Carter has been repaired, replaced. We replaced a driveway down there, old driveway entrance that wasn't in use anymore. And we replaced the curb and gutter on Middlegate down in Irvington. Upcoming, actually we've already completed the brush cutting on 600. The drainage improvements on Rocky Neck are underway. We'll continue to keep up with potholes. We have some shoulder repairs on Route 3. We need to do the asphalt patch on Middlegate next to that curb and gutter. And we'll continue to keep up with work orders. We've been working down Carter's Cove. I don't know if you've been down there. We've been putting a drop inlet and a new pipe. After the July 4th holiday, we'll get down there and finish that up with an asphalt patch. And hopefully that dip will be gone when we're done. So we'll be ready for whatever's going to happen down there at the end of the road. The plant mix schedule, the notice to proceed on that is July 18th. So they should be towards the end of the month, end of July. That work on Route 3, on 200 and on Harris Road will be underway. The Cape Seal, remember that's a two-step process. So the first part of that is done. The second part, they're getting geared up to start that after the holiday, but they are starting back up in the Fredericksburg part of the district. So it'll probably be sometime in August, late August, before they get down here to finish that part. The surface treatment schedule is underway. It's about halfway done. There are a lot of routes on that this year. The smart scale projects are a ways off. The work on Camps Prong, those bids did come back yesterday, and they're being reviewed, but it does look like I expect them to be awarded this time. So that there were four bridges that had scour repairs. I don't know what order they'll work in, but I was glad to see that project get awarded. And the bridge on Oyster Creek down Windmill Point, that's part of a design build bundle. That's been awarded. They're working through design right now. The Oyster Creek Bridge will be the first one that they do, but I don't anticipate seeing construction if they make it to the end of this year. I really think it'll be the first of the year before they start construction down there. Build a temporary bridge and divert traffic, and then replace the primary bridge and put traffic.
Do you have any
back.
information on that? Because I had a couple constituents contact me in regards to that and had some questions or concerns potentially about what would be needed there.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, I'm not sure where it is.
where the bridge is, or?
No,
where-
like where we are on knowing what's going there, what's going to be needed, additional right-of-ways or temporary right-of-ways or what.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, until the design is finalized, they won't know exactly, but they should know enough to have a conversation about it.
Okay.
That's everything I had on my report. Mr. Lee, you had asked me about speed limits, the new legislation effective next week, July 1st, allows localities to set the speed limit on roads that are already 25 miles an hour in residential and business districts. You can reduce the speed limit down to 15 miles an hour. You have to do it in 5-mile-an-hour increments. You would do it under permit, so you'd pull a permit with VDOT to do it. You have to pass an ordinance and resolution and notify VDOT. We'll have information, an instructional memorandum, an IIM, that we'll put out, which I can send to you. The signs would be put up by the county, so there's a cost involved in doing that. But the General Assembly passed that this year, so if the road has an existing speed limit of 25 miles an hour and it's in a business or residential district, which there's a definition for that, the locality can reduce the speed limit to either 20 or 15. You have to do it in 5-mile-an-hour increments, and 15 is a minimum. So does that answer your question on that?
Yeah, thank you for
Okay.
checking.
And then Don and I have a meeting set up on the 9th to look at a couple roads, Lowry Creek Road and I believe Milburn Estates.
Milburn Way, yeah.
Milburn Way, yeah. So we're going to look at those and see about what it would take to get those into the system, if that's possible. So, you all have any other questions for me?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Okay, we're going to the presentations. We have a U.S. Congressional record recognition of the Honorable Armistead Stalakas Nickens. Stokos. I knew I was doing it wrong. All right, Ms. Ates, Hunter.
Good evening and many blessings to everyone.
Good evening.
On behalf of the Nickens family, to Chairman Palin, to the Board of Supervisors members, to county administrators and staff, and to our distinguished guests. I am Francine H. Hunter. This is my dear-hearted cousin, Brenda Campbell. And we also have other Nickens family members here with us. We have Pastor Samuel Kane and Lady Kane. We have Ms. Ella Nickens, and we have Calvinette Betts. We are here to share this presentation on behalf of our ancestor, the Honorable Armistead Stokos Nickens, who advocated, it's okay, it's all right, Stokolas, tomato, and other people pronounce it different ways, as he advocated for all citizens in this community. And as I'm sitting here looking at the Lancaster County seal where it says founded in 1651, a lot of historical records and genealogy dates back to the 1600s for the Nickens family. John Carter II, on the 4th day of June in 1690, freed Chris and Black Dick in 1690. Black Dick, also known as Free Dick, also known as Richard Yokohanakan, his name became anglicized and they became Nickens. 1704, Richard Yokohanakan was listed as a member of the tax list on the Christ Church Parish. 1709, Edward Yokohanakan was also listed on the tax list. So Richard, Black Dick, had Edward. Edward begat another Edward, who married a Susanna Jones Nickens, who became the grandfather of the Honorable Armistead Stokos Nickens. We know there's a rich history in the African Americans, the Nickens, who fought in the American Revolutionary War, 8 Nickens, other family members of the Nickens, and Elijah Weaver, who was a grandfather of the Honorable Armistead Stockless Nickens. On the 22nd of September 2022, we stood in this very room again where we were gracious enough to receive a resolution that was presented to the Nickens family on behalf of you all, and we thank you for that, where the observation was made and resolved for all citizens in the county. October the 15th of 2022 was declared Honorable Armistead Stoklos Nickens. I have with me, and this is from the United States House of Representatives, per I may need that water. The Honorable Robert J. Whitman. And this reads as such: United States of America, Congressional Record, Proceedings and Debates of the Congress, House of Representatives, in recognition of Armistead Stoklos Nickens, Honorable Robert J. Whitman, of Virginia, in the House of Representatives, Friday, February 23rd, 2024. As per Mr. Whitman, Mr. Speaker, I rise today in recognition of the Honorable Armistead Stoklos Nickens, one of the first African Americans to serve in Virginia's government. On December 16, 1871, Armistead Nickens took the oath of office as a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, making history as the first African American elected official in Lancaster County history. Armistead Nickens would go on to win a second term in 1873 as well. However, his life of honor did not begin here. Born in July 1836 to parents Armistead and Polly Weaver Nickens, young Armistead was welcomed into an African American family that had been free for several generations. By 1860, Armistead Nickens worked as a sawyer until he moved back to Lancaster County in 1866 and worked as a farmer. Sometime later, a local agent of the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands identified Armistead as a respectable local man who had been loyal during the Civil War. By the time of his initial election in 1871, not only was he the first African American to hold elected office in the county, but one of the very few until late in the 20th century. Nickens served on the Committee on Militia and Police in both his first and second terms as a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. During his time in office, Armistead Nickens lobbied for a bridge to be constructed over the Rappahannock in Tappahannock, Virginia. Although no construction took place during his tenure, 21 years after his passing, the Downing Bridge opened to the public. Upon finishing his career in the Virginia House of Delegates, Armistead Nickens is credited with the construction of a school for the county's African American children in 1876. He was also one of 5 trustees of St. John's Colored Baptist Church in 1890 and reportedly hauled logs and laid bricks during construction of Calvary Baptist Church. Nickens was ordained as a deacon in that church on June 11, 1892. Nickens died at his home in April of 1906 and was buried in the family plot in Lancaster County. Mr. Speaker, I ask you to join me in recognizing the immense accomplishments of the Honorable Armistead Stoklos Nickens. And on behalf of the Nickens family, we would like to present this to you all so that you can have this as part of your history in your historical archives at the Lancaster Courthouse on this date, June 27, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can we get our family to come up and pose for a picture? Family. You look fine. We also have with us a dear friend and adopted sister, Sandra Carter. If you could come up. You all may remember my mom, Ms. Zelda Gonzalez. She helped me. The same way. Two rows.
Yes.
Oh, we got one more? Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, all right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
The next that we have on the presentation is Mrs. Linda Hodges.
Mr. Palin, Chair, members of the board, of course, Mr. Gill, thank you for this opportunity tonight. A little over a month ago, we celebrated 50 years of service to this community. And part of this celebration was to look at our past and take a peek into our future. I'd like to take just a few minutes before I introduce the next executive director and return to the early 1970s when, as we know now, there are 40 community services boards that were being established throughout the Commonwealth. And at that time, we were known as Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Mental Health and Mental Retardation Services. And we were one of the last ones to be established. Back in the early 1970s, there were over 1,700 people living in what was called at that time the Petersburg State Colony. That's an institutional setting for individuals who at that time were referred to as mentally retarded individuals. Now we refer to them as intellectually disabled and really more contemporary developmentally disabled. This is when an individual has an IQ of less than 70. Once admitted, they often remain there for the rest of their life. If a family had a child who was intellectually disabled and began acting out like in adolescence, and the parents were unable to manage the child or the behaviors, they would send them often to the training center with the understanding that they would receive some training that would eliminate the behaviors, and then the individual could return to the parents. However, as I just referenced, in the early 70s, there were 1,700 individuals who continued to receive this training. Now, by the end of the 70s, there were 7 training centers throughout Virginia. Today, 50 years later, there is only one, and that is in Chesapeake. And there are only 75 beds, a big change from 1,700 people. Now, individuals who have an intellectual disability can live in the community where they grew up. They can live in a sponsored home. They can live in a residential facility, a residential home, which we have 5 of in our agency. And like all of us, they have very interests of their own. They don't lack that. When you're in an institutional setting, you don't have the opportunity to kind of spread your wings, if you will, and pursue an interest or even hopes and dreams that you might have. So I say that to say we have come a long way, and in great part to our partnership with our boards of supervisors, with you. In fact, today, the individuals who live in some of our residences had a prom. For most of them, it was the first prom they ever attended, because if they made it to high school, which probably most of them did not in that era, they would certainly not be appropriate to attend the senior prom. 50 years ago, if you were diagnosed with the most severe mental illness, that being schizophrenia, a disorder that surfaces most often in one's late teens to mid-20s, and maybe as late as the early 30s, you would have been told that your life was over as you knew it. Just when you were getting started in life, you were told to give up your hopes or dreams of an education, a family, or even children. You were told you are unable to manage stress in your life. And it was so critical, the doctors would say, to adhere to your medication regimen. Don't stress yourself, stay at home, take your medications. And at that time, we knew the first generation of antipsychotics would bring on side effects such as tremors, most notably in their hands, tick-like movements in their mouth, dry mouth, like you and I have right now. I have right now, needing the water, and even a shuffling of the feet. More often than not, these individuals were written out of meaningful life experiences. When I began working at this agency in the 1980s, I met a man at Eastern State who was in his 60s at that time, and he was admitted when he was around 8 years old and never left. Today, individuals diagnosed with schizophrenia can recover. They have many opportunities to live a very full life. As one person who has the diagnosis of schizophrenia, a full life with a job, a car, and a date on Friday night, like all of us want. And I recently heard on the radio that a woman diagnosed with schizophrenia was eventually able to return to school and subsequently obtained a degree in molecular biology. It's not about intelligence. Today, because of the array of services available in our community, we are able to offer supports so each individual has hope, coupled with opportunities to live as independently as possible. Looking back, this is nothing short of monumental. How far we have come. And I'm here in part today to again extend my thanks to you, the Board of Supervisors in Lancaster, for partnering with us these past 50 years. So the next piece of information is, and I give thanks to you again for this, like I said, in the 1970s, we were named Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Mental Health and Mental Retardation. We were later called Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Community Services Board, and we had now officially changed our name to Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Behavioral Health. And again, I thank you for that support. Lastly, I'm here to introduce to you Melissa DeVault, who will be the next executive director to begin on Monday, as I'm retiring. Tomorrow's actually my last day. Melissa has worked in the CSB system, and she comes from District 19, which is in the Petersburg area, Prince George County, and the area, I think, between there and North Carolina. And she's very familiar with programs and services, and also the strengths and the many challenges of our Commonwealth system of care. So I'm just going to turn it over to Melissa, and I thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for making room for us on the agenda to present about our agency this evening, and for me to be able to introduce myself. I have a little over 20 years in behavioral health and about 12 years in the CSB. I'm excited to be joining Middle Peninsula Behavioral Health, and I'm looking forward to working, continuing the relationship. Linda has told me that we have a great relationship here in Lancaster, and I'm looking forward to continuing that and hopefully expanding upon it. So thank you.
Thank you, and welcome
Thank
to
you so much.
Ms. Hodges.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations. You're retired right now. Congratulations. Right. And thank you for your service that you provided.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next one we have is the school construction, all right? I thought you had left.
Just got a few slides again tonight for you on the progress update. Before we go into it, I don't pause on this slide, but a lot of the pictures that we're taking, I try to get from this perspective, so we're kind of staying in this same realm of things. And there's a few things I'd like you to pick up on this cover picture. One is the bus loop that's sort of in that top left corner, and the parking lot that's in front of the school. And as we go through the next few slides, you'll see why that becomes important. We'll get to the next one. This is a 2-week look ahead. It's hard to read, admittedly, but basically what they've got going on is the continuation of the wall, some site work, some waterproofing, and the electricians are going to start showing up because they need to do some penetrations through that wall to prepare for that. So that's sort of the quick snapshot of what's happening. The wall that I keep referencing, you can see how that carries through the month of July. So hopefully by the end of July, we'll have the bulk of that wall done. We'll get to the next slide. So this is a drilling that's taking place right now for the geothermal wells. There's 180 of these wells that are going in the parking lot out there. They're 300 feet deep, and it's a complex system. Again, this applies to the IRA credits we were talking about earlier. And so a lot of this work is all underneath the parking lot, and the reason that it's important to get those guys in now is before any other site work takes place, that they'll have all that stuff in place. So a lot of work taking place as far as that goes right now.
How many wells you say?
It's 180 wells, and so this is a diagram of them that shows the location through the parking lot. Again, back to that picture, you can see the buses. I drew in some yellow lines to sort of indicate where the bus loop was in that picture, but you can see the location of those wells in the parking lot. Just a general layout of the building. I think the reason I wanted to show this again is to show again where that bus loop was, parking lot. And the wall that we're working on is that dotted line on the backside of the school, sort of that looks out over the pond. So it kind of gives you an idea of where that wall, but you can also tell from that how far the school extends past that wall that's going in place. Yeah, I think we're good. And here's that same kind of perspective. The shot was taken last week, I believe, and shows the portion of the wall that's finished over in the far right corner, right side of the drawing. What they poured this week is sort of indicated by the forms that are showing, and you can see some of the rebar that's in place for the rest of the wall. Again, we're hoping by the end of July to have that wall completely in place. And you can tell on this picture, so this is where you're starting to see things take shape. You can see the bus loop goes around those trees that are in that, and you can kind of get an idea about the square layout of the parking lot and the guys drilling the wells out in the parking lot. So things are starting to take shape. Get to the next slide. Just a quick picture of the guys pouring the concrete, again on that second section of wall. There's 6 sections, so this finishes up the second section. The dry weather, while it wasn't great for a lot of things around here, it's been really good for pouring concrete. So we've appreciated that, and hopefully we can continue on through July with some good weather. Again, this is just another shot to show you what the wall and the perspective of that and the places that they're working. And I believe the next slide just gives an arrow that indicates the section of the wall that they're working on. you can get to the next one. Yeah, so that was what was poured last week. Any questions?
Any questions, gentlemen? Yep. Well, thank you, sir, for the
All right.
update.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Okay, now we go into the public hearing. Mrs. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first public hearing comes to you as an application for a change of zoning district classification from R1 Residential General to C1 Commercial by Donna McNeil, Fillmore trustee, for a .477 acre parcel with improvements identified as tax map number 16-40B, located at 10428 Berry Ball Road, Virginia State Highway Route 3. This request comes to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval 6-0 by the Lancaster County Planning Commission. Article 8 of the Lancaster County Land Development Code outlines permitted uses and regulations for the C1 district. The applicant wishes to utilize the existing house on the property as an office for their business, Brookvale Mini Storage, located on an adjacent parcel. Currently, it is zoned R1, and the applicant wishes to be in compliance with allowable uses of the zoning code. This rezoning request may be considered reasonable and appropriate if the nearby parcels have business or commercial uses, and I've provided a GIS map showing that for you. The parcel adjacent to this parcel is zoned C1 and is used for Brookvale Mini Storage business. There are also two C2 parcels nearby. The comprehensive plan suggests that commercial activity be located in or near the towns and in or near traditional village areas. This parcel is not within the county's primary growth area, the triangle-shaped area between the three incorporated towns of Kilmarnock, Irvington, and Whitestone. This parcel is, however, located off of a major thoroughfare as described in our comprehensive plan and within an area of commercial use parcels. To help their request, the applicants have offered and signed a notarized conditional rezoning proffer, which has been attached. This issue has been advertised and adjoining property owners notified as required by code. To date, there has only been one call from an adjoining property owner, and she had no objection to the rezone request. Thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, before I open it up, the floor up to public comment, do you have any questions? None, okay. I'm getting ready to open the floor up to public comment. You have anybody who wants to speak, has 3 minutes to say what you need to say. At the end of 2 minutes, I will hold this up, letting you know that you only have 1 minute left. At this particular time, the floor is now open for public comment. Anyone for public comment? Anyone online? Floor now closed to public comment. Gentlemen, I move that we adopt the change of zoning district classification from R1 Residential General to C1 Commercial for Donald McNeil, Fillmore trustee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, motion passed unanimously. Okay. All right, okay. Next one, Mrs. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have for you this evening your second public hearing, which is an application for change of zoning district classification from R1 Residential to C1 Commercial by Mr. Greg Berkshire for a .5 acre parcel with improvements identified as tax map number 7-67, located at 4016 Mary Ball Road off Virginia State Highway 3. This request comes to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval 6-0 by the Lancaster County Planning Commission. Article 8 of the Lancaster County Land Development Code outlines permitted uses and regulations for the C1 district. The applicant wishes to utilize the existing building for retail seafood sales. Historically, this property has been used commercially since 1975, and I've attached documentation of this in your file. Currently, tax map number 767 is zoned R1, and the applicant wishes to be in compliance with the allowable uses of the zoning code. This rezoning request may be considered reasonable and appropriate if the nearby parcels have businesses or commercial uses, and I have attached a map showing that. The parcel diagonally across the street, 7-47, is zone C1, and there are a cluster of C1 parcels that can be found approximately 1.08 miles south on Mary Ball Road. The comprehensive plan suggests that commercial activity be located in or near towns or in traditional village areas. This parcel is not within the county's primary growth area, the triangular-shaped area between the three incorporated towns. This parcel is, however, located off a major thoroughfare as described in our comprehensive plan. To help with the request, the applicant has offered and signed a notarized conditional rezoning proffer, which is attached to your packet. This issue has been advertised and the adjoining property owners notified as required by code. To date, there has been one comment from an adjoining property owner who owns the farm field immediately behind that parcel. And she stated that as long as Mr. Berkshire's activities remain on his property, she has no objections. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Berkshire?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. He already know I have some questions for him. All right, now you've proffered for this, well, retail seafood sales is what you're applying for. All right, and you have some proffers there, and one part of that proffer is auto sales and service, or the auto mechanics part, garage. If your retail seafood sales doesn't work out, what's your plans for the property?
That is what I know is the vehicles. Right now, I'm happy to store my own vehicles in there, but if I could rent it out to somebody to run a garage there, I personally am not going to run nothing there.
All right. Now, okay, there's a concern here. All right, if you, about concerning vehicles. All right, if you have it as a garage and you operate, run it as like Garland Foster used to use it, and people moving in and out, having their car serviced, there's no problem with that. But the part of it is, if you use it as a, what's the proper word, salvage yard, we don't want that.
It's interesting, the stigma that comes behind that. When I first came to the county on another piece of property, that's what I was told. There would never be a junkyard in this county. And I kind of laughed.
Okay.
It's funny, that stigma. You know, we are so far above that. We are the only licensed people in the Northern Neck to pick up cars. Everything is computerized. We have to run every car through DMV and Vetus before we can do anything with it. Those vehicles that are being talked about, that night, for some weird reason, I picked up 5 of them. 3 of them off of Lee Chapel, 1 down at Moeller's, and 1 at Lancaster Shores. I dropped them there. Then one of our trucks come down and pick them up real quick. Those, probably 95% of the vehicles you get out of people's yards are nothing but scrap to be crushed. If they are sitting there, that is money that's tied up, not making it. They have to get back to the yard. They have to be processed and crushed. So no, there would never be vehicles as a salvage down here. It's just not feasible financially or any way, shape, or form. You know, we do try to keep clean the county up from picking up cars and getting them back up to the yard as quick as we can. Because like I say, if they're sitting there, there's no value.
Okay, so I heard you say there will never be one there.
There will never be one there.
Okay, we're gonna hold you.
It's
to
not,
that.
that's fine. I've got one place that would be a whole lot better,
Okay,
but it just will not work.
okay, all right.
It's too much distance between the places. We pick up all the junk cars there. And like I say, that evening, it was just a very odd thing. And it's very interesting because in the last month, business has gotten so busy on people, people are actually hurting for money right now.
Right.
And they're really trying to get rid of the cars. I picked up a car from a girl just a half a mile up the road. And then a week later, she called and wanted to sell the car she was driving, said she needed money.
Wow.
So bad. Then she asked for a title loan, which I can't do.
Yeah.
But I told her I'd come by, and I loaned her $150, and she's supposed to come back the first of the month when she gets her check.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there will never, if there is a junk car there, within a matter of days, it will be gone, because it has to be up at the shop, crushed and gone, so I can get money.
See, that's the issue. We don't want it to ever be there. We want your first statement, it will never be there.
So I can't drop them there overnight and pick them up the next day?
No, sir.
Then that won't happen.
Okay. All right.
Where is your salvage yard?
In Warsaw.
Yeah.
Warsaw.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, we've noticed also you have a sign out there that says wanted vehicles. All right.
Yes.
That's just for purpose of advertising.
That is the address, or that is the phone number to Warsaw. We are very regulated by that. All the signs you see put on telephone poles and stuff like that, they're all against the code.
Okay.
We're regulated by, DMV police very strongly.
Okay, good.
But we've got a sign like that in, on Route 3 up in Richmond County. There's one over in Northumberland. It's just to,
Right.
get drum business.
Okay,
Are
good.
you saying that's a permanent sign that will stay there?
No, I can move it. It's just, there was just one of those signs out there,
Yeah.
and I just, put a banner on it. It was just there doing nothing.
Okay, yeah. All
So
right.
what, the sign? You want the sign to go?
I'm assuming, well, I shouldn't assume. When you start your retail seafood business, that's what you're gonna put on that sign, right?
I'm sure he would, yes.
Okay, oh, I see what you're doing, all right. Well, you make sure he does.
I just want my rent check. I do plan on, as soon as this is approved, redoing the roof on there. You know, I plan on putting a A-frame metal roof on it, repainting the building, and, you know, I kind of want that image of when it goes by there, people say, wow, you know, when my name's attached to something. And, you know, my next little project down here, I hope that, you know, there's never even any doubt what I'm going to do.
Okay, all right. Gentlemen, y'all have any questions? All right. I like that statement. We holding you to it. Never have
That's
one
going to kill me.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
So that he stays in compliance with everything, I just wanted to confirm something. So a business owner that's coming to try to clean up the county with junk cars, you never want to see him drop one there? Because, I mean, he's trying to clean the county up from junk cars. If it's not feasible to drive all the way back up to Richmond County, he doesn't want to take it to his private home. He would drop it at his commercial business.
Let me answer why. It is our experience. Once we allow something temporarily, then eventually, a few years later, we have a problem.
So let me ask you, when Mr. Forrester ran it, I live right down this road from there, so I already know the answer to this question. How many times did a vehicle sit on that property, or how long, torn apart until they got around to fixing it? And boats that sat in the yard for years on end.
All right, I wasn't on the board at that time, so I don't know.
Oh, this was just a year ago, sir.
Yeah,
not even
that. In a way, what it is, grandfather.
So what he's saying is he
You mean
doesn't
with-
plan on leaving cars there for more than a day.
I understand.
But he doesn't want to, you know, not comply with the county. That's the only thing I'm trying to clarify.
I understand, but we holding strong on this, and we're starting to hold strong on some other issues as well that doesn't involve you. Yeah.
No, one question, so if it doesn't pass zoning, it's grandfathered, I can still put the cars there.
There's a difference between auto repair and a salvage yard.
Right.
There's a difference between an operable vehicle that needs repair and an inoperable vehicle. So I think the board is making the distinction between operable vehicles that may need repair can be there. Inoperable vehicles cannot.
Yeah. I mean,
Inoperable vehicles, salvage vehicles.
Yeah. Nothing against you. This is what we're doing.
Okay.
All right.
So what I'm clarifying, County Administrator, the vehicles that were there last week were technically operable vehicles. They had wheels, tires, all fenders, all fenders.
But he said he carried them to his place for salvage.
2 days later, yes, sir.
So they need to go the same day. That's what the board is saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I believe that's what the board is saying.
That's exactly what the board is saying. All right. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good, we good.
Is that all, sir?
We good.
All right, thank you.
All right. Again, you understand what we're saying, right?
I understand, sir.
All right, good. All right. Okay, any questions, gentlemen, before I open it up? Okay, the floor is now open for public comment. Yes, sir. Remember, you have 3 minutes. I'll hold this up at the end of 2.
Chairman Palin, members of the Board of Supervisors, I'm the one that's looking to rent the building from Mr. Berkshire
Oh, okay.
for the seafood business. Just wondering if you guys had any questions for me, if it does in fact pass and we
All
move
right,
forward.
what you gonna do with that sign out there once you get started?
It'll be the name of the business if
Okay.
we follow through with this.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions on it? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Anyone online? All right, public comment session is closed. Gentlemen, I move that we approve the change of zoning district classification from R1 residential to C1 commercial for Greg Berkshire. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, that's the motion passed unanimously. All right.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Good, all right. All right.
I'll move for approval of the
Oh,
consensus.
you missed one public hearing.
One more.
Oh, sorry.
And we've been waiting on this one for a while, so we need to take care of this one.
Ms. Gill?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is a consideration of proposed amendments to the Lancaster County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Appendix A, Cable Franchise Ordinance. We've had an ordinance in place for many years with Breeze Line. It expired. You will remember that when you all created the Lancaster County Broadband Authority, you tasked them with negotiating a new agreement with Breeze Line. The Broadband Authority has completed that task. They hired an outside firm to help them, and I believe that the Broadband Authority Chairman, Cherie Kaiser, is available on Zoom now. If you have any questions, as she was more directly involved with the update of this Breeze Line agreement. County Attorney Jim Cornwell has also reviewed it. The one thing I will add is that this is a non-exclusive agreement, meaning that if other entities wanted to enter into the same agreement with the county, they could do so. This agreement is Breeze Line specific, but it is not, it's non-exclusive. So if Cherie can hear me, I know she's available. Yeah, I know you're available for any questions. Is there anything you want to add to the first part of this?
No, good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Palin and Board of Supervisors. I would just add that this is solely a cable franchise agreement. It has nothing to do with broadband. It is an agreement with the county to have access to public rights of way for the purpose of providing cable video programming.
Okay, good. Any questions, gentlemen?
I'm glad she said that, because I didn't catch that part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this, I'm going to be a little bit off at this point, and I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I have to say, whether it's Breeze Line, and by the way, I have Breeze Line, and I was out twice this week, and it has to do with the fact that there's so much overgrowth on the lines that any storm just splits a cable. But whether it's Breeze Line or a cell service or whoever it may be, if it's the, John, we've given John the task of bringing in businesses in this county, and bringing in young people that will live and work here. If we don't have the infrastructure, if it doesn't improve from what it is now, no one's going to come here. Our cell service is terrible. Our internet is terrible. We have a cell tower on Weems Road that's been standing there for months, and there's nothing hooked to it. And I've asked Olivia a couple of times to find out about it, and I think they're just putting her off. But are they waiting for fiber optic to get to it? And if they are, when is that going to be? And why can't we get some service to it in the meantime?
Right, I think that is the issue, and I was given a date of August for go live on that tower.
With fiber?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Somebody, just for my purposes, is it a cell tower on Weems?
Yeah, it's a cell tower.
It's a 100-foot, no, it's a monopole, Cherie. It's not a typical 300-foot lattice tower.
Oh, okay. And who owns the tower? Or currently, or used to use it for service? Is it Verizon? Is it T-Mobile?
It's Verizon.
Oh, well, that's very helpful. So this is sort of off point from our cable franchise agreement discussion, but Lancaster County Broadband Authority is working directly with Verizon, one in connection with the VATI grant that we're waiting to hear about for service that they want to bring to Lancaster County, and we should know we're hearing now August. We don't know what the delay is. That's VATI. That's not Verizon or LCVA, but we should hear soon. But Verizon is also talking to us about their wireless services in the county and wireless broadband and fixed in connection with the BEAD money that's coming. So having information about this Weems Tower is just useful, because we'll be talking to them next week on what more Verizon is interested in doing, can do, and what we can do jointly in connection with the $1.45 billion that's coming to the state of Virginia for finishing out the broadband deployment.
Okay. Any other questions or statements? No. I just got a question that for Verizon. Is the service used to be real strong in here for my cell phone service, and now it's gotten a lot weaker. I get drops in certain areas I never got drops in. Sometime in my house I got moved from one room to another room, and that never happened before. And I'm interested in why is this happening and what they plan on doing about it. Okay, thanks.
You're going to need a whole lot more of those 100-foot monopoles for 5G because 5G sucks in rural areas where you have forest and stuff for it to pass through, and you can't put them on top of every building.
No.
So you need a pole everywhere, every few hundred feet probably, or a few thousand feet, you're going to need one to penetrate forest and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if you live in the middle of forest, you're never going to get good 5G coverage, especially in the summertime. That's why the signal is worse in the summer than it is in the winter. Or when it rains, because the 5G doesn't go through rain like your satellite TV goes out when it rains hard.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to open the floor up to public hearing. Anyone? Anyone online? All right. Public hearing now closed. The floor is now closed to that. All right. I move that we adopt this proposed amendment to the Langston County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 18, Appendix A, Cable Franchise Ordinance to update the Breeze Line, which is updating the Breeze Line Agreement. All right, all in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Kaiser, for all your hard work and your team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Now I guess I can
Yeah,
motion for the
consensus
consensus.
docket.
I move for the consensus docket approval.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion unanimously passed. All right. Next one is salaries and invoices.
I move that we approve the invoices and expenditures for the month of May in the following amount. Invoices $1,883,330.70. Total payroll $423,853.34 for a total of $2,007,184.04. Capital improvements $908,848.50 and ARPA $77,541.91.
All right, you've heard that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Okay. Regional radio system change order request. Chief Smith.
Back again.
Yeah, all right.
So this comes after our last request to split the cell. We were able to get into our third detailed design review. I wanted to, instead of making a bunch of small requests, I wanted to wait, get through the design review and have one final lump sum request. So that is presented here. The first section, I presented just the full quote that I received from them. We are still in negotiations as far as pricing, so the pricing that you see here is not final. It will not exceed that amount, but we have a lot of potential, especially tomorrow, to get reducing cost on several of these items. To break it down, the first half, we went through dispatch. The teams came out, did the assessment of the areas, took their measurements, got everything kind of straight at the physical location, which is where these changes came from. There's just, anybody that's been in dispatch, there's not much space. So in order to make this work for the backup radios, they need to be moved to the other side of the sheriff's office where the storage room is at. So that's also the room where kind of the core of the system will be housed. That will free up that space on the desk because they are rather bulky items. The next part to that is just adding some different stuff that we worked out with between the dispatcher, supervisor, and the dispatchers. They had a large request to switch from wired headsets to wireless, and also just out of hygienic concern, moving to single units assigned to the dispatcher, so that way you're not putting something straight from one person's ear and head to another person. So it kind of keeps it more sanitary. That is the first half. The second half is now that we're that we went through the design phase, we've identified exactly what mutual aid sites to interop with. So now that we know that, we can get the particular equipment needed for that, along with, we do need additional shelving, but that it will be built into the existing racks at the sites. After that, the modular card is just a backup. That was identified as the number 2 issue for taking down the site. So to kind of battle that, adding a second card, so that way if the first primary network card fails, there's a backup to kick right on and the site stays online. The next biggest update is the power supply, going from a 15-minute power supply from the original contract to a 2-hour power supply. Number 1, identified site failures due to generator fail to start. Having the 2-hour power supply gives you time if there is any issue. Outside of that, we already did the shelter in February. Now that we kind of have a plan for that, the next largest amount is the civil works for that site. So that'll be the site behind the sheriff's office. So you'll have another request kind of next month for what we need in the current contract with SBA to kind of make this happen. So for that one would be your concrete pads for the shelter generator. We'll need fencing, gravel, electrical, all the civil work included with that. The next item after that is they did a full survey on every site, found a lot of issues with grounding, which explains all of our lightning strikes. So they have a lot of modifications to make there. That covers the grounding. The last item on there is for the regional alarm system to match what the other counties have, so we can all have one alarm system. And then following it, that is just the administrative costs from all the additional hours.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Where are we at on the total cost now?
Year-to-date, or total cost, so you have $5,114,976,000 is approved. Year-to-date is at $1,643,475.
And how much has the total change orders to date added up to? Do we have a number for that? I just want to keep a running total of like what it's costing and how much it's changing.
For this, the maximum amount is at $292,039.
The previous change order, though, I can't remember the amount of that. Do you remember? The one that was already approved months ago.
The split cell was $84,835. The shelter was $125,000, and then we also did the fiber run at $16,448.
You said, did I understand you right? You said that so far we used $1 million something?
Yes.
Because this is going to kind of lead into the next discussion, because the next item is going to be another one of these things that is, whatever you're presenting as the cost is going to be change order after change order and cost after cost after cost.
That's been a lot. This really should,
It's
unless
not-
something.
This is not an attack on you. This is an attack on the federal government who pushes these mandates down without the funding and without any of the idea of actually how to implement this crap.
Because we approved $5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But you'll be approving
Yeah.
this change order to increase it.
The additional.
And you said there'll be another change order next month.
No, next month will be, so in order to fit the shelter in there, we have to expand the site.
Yeah.
So next month will be a change of the
lease.
current lease.
Yeah, the area under lease with SBA needs to get larger to be able to house the shelter. And so we'll be increasing the leased area of county property. That requires a public hearing. So that'll be a public hearing next month.
Because I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Jason was thinking that there was going to be another request for.
No,
additional funds.
not that I'm aware of.
I'm sure there will be more. I mean,
Right.
undoubtedly, there's going to be more.
I've done a lot of work to make sure that kind of this would cover pretty much everything for at least the next 6 months, if not the final system. But
And when are we supposed to go live with this system?
They really want to start on July 1st, but the kind of SBA thing
When's
will
July
push us
1st?
back.
This year, like
Yes.
next week?
No, they're ready to start. If you go behind the primary school, you'll start to see everything. I've unloaded all that by hand just to point that out. But yeah, the school has really come in handy. The outside stuff is in the parking lot, it's very large. A lot of the pallet stuff is in the gym, and then I also am utilizing 2 classrooms in there. So,
Yeah, but I think the question was, when is all of this
What
going to
is
be
the realistic
operational?
date?
I mean,
oh, no, they expect to have everything online by December, but we can't officially go live until at least late June next year. Because the contract says it has to be tested and approved in full foliage. So, the system will be operational, probably at least by January and usable, but we can't officially approve and accept it until at least late June.
So
But
we'd
they're,
be like beta testing it during that time essentially?
yes.
Okay. All right, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this, to appropriate this additional funds of $292,000.
$39.40. Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion unanimously passed. Okay, thank you, sir.
The next agenda item, the pharmacy project, this has been a real pain. So you have every EMS agency in the Commonwealth of Virginia affected by this, and everyone trying to do this at once. So some of the ones,
I know.
it's been interesting. Had to become kind of a learn it all as we've gone along. For 5 decades, we've never had to worry about this. We use the medications, turn it in, get a sealed box from the hospital, and that's it. So that method works well. So what we're trying to do, our system is challenging as well because we're 3 agencies that share equipment, so which in the Board of Pharmacy realm and the DEA realm is not heard of. So initially, when we started this project, everyone was going to have their own license separately, along with their own medication kits, and so you would be tripling everything with a huge, enormous cost. So the Board of Pharmacy kind of met with us, and they had an emergency hearing, and they put orders out that will allow us to be able to share with the volunteers. They'll still need to get the initial license, but we can exchange the kits between each other. So this all came into, this will go into effect November 27th, 2024. So regardless whether the Commonwealth is able to make any changes, the major, what it comes down to is currently the hospital is funding the medications. So that's how we're getting them. But all major hospital chains have all issued letters stating that on November 27th, they were going to cease that. So even if something happens in the Commonwealth, we still won't be able to get medications from the hospital. So the easiest part is just for, as a region and individual agencies, to come up with a solution ourselves. So kind of an example today, a lady, I guess, collapsed right at our office on the first level. We were able to give medication right then and there before she even made it to the ambulance and improve her situation. So after November 27th, if we don't have medications, we can't do that. So what I've come up with for this, and again, the medications are on our market value, so they fluctuate. I try to use an example from when the market was high, just for the initial cost. So everything I've outlined is based on a 24 kit system. We have 6 trucks and 2 quick response vehicles. So the idea would be for each kit to have 2 fully stocked kits on it. So that way you have a backup, like today where we had 5 calls back to back, you would essentially be out for 2 hours trying to get that switched out by the time you went and changed. And so that's your truck out of service that whole time, is also a delay to going back into service to take another call. So it's a lot to it behind the scenes. So I think having at least 2 kits on there will give them that option, and then come up with a system that allows us to keep completed kits at the station. So that way they're not running all over the place trying to swap out kits. They can just do it right there when they get back. The first portion, the initial medications. So a lot of the medications you cannot buy individually, you have to buy as a lot. So during this initial phase, it shouldn't be an issue because we're going to be stocking kits. So, but my biggest concern is having medicine sit on the shelf and just expire. So, which the law also states that has to be addressed as well. But besides the initial medication, we'll get 8 boxes from the Peninsula's EMS Council on the exchange in November. But we'll have to buy our own additional, most likely will be a bag. And then on top of that, each one has to have a lock or a seal on it that is numbered. So after that, for current site improvements, I reviewed with PIMS. I've submitted some stuff to the Board of Pharmacy to see if they'll accept it. So what happens is I have to come up with a plan of our pharmacy room and system. We'll have to submit that for a license review. An inspector will come and approves the site. But once I can submit the application without having everything in, but by the time the inspector comes, everything has to be finalized. So in order to do this, we have a room at the office now. We have to switch out, so we need to change out the door handle to a combination lock. We also need to get lockable cabinets as well as 3 safes. The security system is going to be the biggest one because it needs alternative power source as well as 2 points of connection. So the plan initially is Wi-Fi with a mobile backup. Every security company I've talked to has an annual fee, so there is that. The next is kind of the administrative fees. To submit our application to Board of Pharmacy is $120. It's also $120 every year to renew the license. The DEA fee is listed as $888, but there is there's a place on the site that says if you're a government entity, it's waived. Going back to the expired medications and the medication waste, so we will have to have a system in place that separates that from the current stock, and also have a system, it has to be tracked kind of cradle to grave. So you have to partner with the company that can dispose of the medications. And then outside of that, we also fall under the DEA track and trace law. Doing this with the system that we have in 24 hours, doing it on pen and paper is going to be an extreme nightmare. There's also a ton of room for error there. And every penalty that comes with this, unlike kind of the other stuff where it's just kind of a warning, every infraction for this comes with the financial penalty. So, and it is fairly hefty for those that have been charged before. So the other one is kind of the tracking software. So that'll help keep track of, especially the narcotics, the dispensing system. So without having to build pharmacies at each station, what we're trying to do is just get an all-in-one drug cabinet. So that way you can have your kits, the providers just type in their information, the door pops open, they take the kit and put the used one away. So that would really be the easiest situation. That would still have to fall under the rest of the pharmacy guidelines, what most of the marketable cabinets do. And then that also has software that will track everybody that checks anything in and out, and then we'll send it to the other software and allow us to have everything for all of our DEA requirements. So this was very difficult. So the initial project cost that I came up with was $88,820 to start off.
On your medications, to set up, the initial is $35,000.
Yes.
So Northumberland, Richmond County, all of them facing the same thing.
Yes, everyone.
So has there been any idea or any investigation if the counties went together and you went to this company that's selling them that, you know, cost some cost savings that way?
That's what we're doing, regional procurement. So there's several contracts that we'll be able to utilize, but it's pretty much a discount, but the overall cost will fluctuate. And then we're also susceptible to the drug shortages now. So something on our contract we might have to venture from to get an alternative. But yet we are planning for a regional procurement for that.
Because I mean, it's going to be an ongoing cost here.
Well, yeah, like I said, this is going to escalate exponentially, I have no doubt. And so, am I correct that this is an act of Congress that's done this?
Yes.
So Rob Whitman, Senator Kane, and Mark Warner voted for doing this.
I'm not sure who voted to do it.
Is it state or federal?
It's federal.
It's federal, yeah.
Somebody needs to find out and ask the questions because it doesn't make any sense. And no one's told me to find any benefit to this system. What the benefit? The only benefit I see is that senators and congressmen who take lots of money from big pharma have now come up with a new scheme to put more unfunded mandates and pad the pockets of their big donors. That's what it looks like to me.
It's a lot. And
putting a big burden on local government and folks like you that have no time to deal with this. We're not in the pharmacy business or the drug business.
That's what I'm looking at how.
The last time Congress was involved in the drug business, they killed a bunch of people with opiates.
But this is going to be a full-time job.
It is going to be a full-time job, which means we're probably going to have to hire a pharmacist.
That's a lot.
I will never vote for this because somebody needs to push back. Somebody needs to say no, and somebody needs to say that this is stupid and ridiculous, and we're not going to do it.
You won't hire.
You won't get my vote for this ever, so I mean, get it from somewhere else, but I'm never going to vote for an unfunded, ridiculous mandate like this that has no one can explain me to why we're doing it and what benefit it has to the taxpayers or public health or anything to put local government into pharmacy businesses. Who the hell came up with that? I'll start banging on the desk again because that's just ridiculous. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, who sits in an office and says, oh, this is a great idea. Let's put local government to open up pharmacies.
See, the problem is, Jason, come November the 20th or something like that, they can't get the drugs in the bottle.
I understand that, but I mean, at the same sense, the reason why we get in these things is because we just keep accepting them.
Mr. Gee?
Hey, Matt, is there any way, I mean, a few of these items here are big-ticket items, the medication dispensing system. Is there any way that the counties could go together and share that cost? That's not fixing, that's only helping to bring down the cost some temporarily. And I agree with what Jason says, it's all BS, I think. But
No,
is that a way that we could help to cut down the cost some to each county, is sharing some of that overhead cost? Does each county need to have that?
Every facility will have to have it. So any building that they run ambulance out of that come up with, I know Richmond County's already got theirs on order, and so has Northumberland. But we do have, through our vendor, there has been procurement and reduction in cost for it.
Are you telling me there are no other Board of Supervisors members concerned about this like me, I am, or like they don't care, they're just going to fund this and accept it as an unfunded mandate and get in the pharmacy business? Northumberland wants to do that?
There's been
Richmond County
pushback.
wants to do that? I can't believe that those supervisors want to get in the pharmacy business. Somebody needs to check their heads if they are.
It's just, we're been pretty much at no choice at this
How
point.
much time are they giving you? When did this
We are the people governing.
This happened like super quick as well, so you haven't had a whole lot of time. But Matt, you're telling me that there can't be a, kind of like the technical school, there cannot be a Northern Neck warehouse that houses a pharmacist and the drugs and everything?
No, well, it's, what it's actually through is our medical director. So in order to make anything happen, everything is run through our medical director's DEA license and approval.
But you're right, Jason, this changes everything.
Somebody needs to be held accountable and come in here. I want Rob Whitman to come down here and explain who voted for this and what's going on, because I'm never gonna vote for this.
All right,
It is a completely unfunded mandate. It puts local government in the pharmacy business.
So if we
This-
don't vote in
this-
favor
this-
of this
this-
month, then we wait until Rob Whitman comes next month?
This is something we gotta do. Now, we can write a letter of disapproval of what has been taking place, and if we want to do that, I would recommend we go ahead and do that. But this is something we have to do. We got lives dependent upon this, so, in Lancaster County, so we're gonna have to do it. So, at this particular time, I move that, we approve the pharmacy project budget request of $88,820. All right, now, y'all have all heard the motion.
There's such thing of voting under protest.
I know that all of us be voting under protest. Yep.
We're either voting to cut people off of medication they need or to take a stand. So
Yeah.
you got to do what is right, but the whole thing stinks. The whole thing stinks.
All right. So-
I definitely think you should probably bring it up to VACO.
I
Say
will
that
definitely
again.
bring it up to them. I'm gonna, I want the elected officials who voted for such things, if this is actually an act of Congress, I want them to come down here and explain what benefit to who is benefiting from this. Because like I said, the only way I can see any benefit is the campaign checks that flow from them from Big Pharma, and they pass these unfunded mandates down to us to fund. Because you've not explained any benefit. It's a burden to you.
It's a
Think about
heavy burden.
When you spread this across all the counties of the state.
It's
think
billions
about
and
the
billions
number.
and billions, if not trillions of dollars.
Well, what I'm hearing, gentlemen, after we pass this thing, is you all want to write a letter or something, a resolution or something, and send to our representatives.
No, I'm not, I'm gonna go further than that. I'm gonna vote in favor of this, but I won't vote in favor of anything else that deals with this until Mr. Whitman comes here and explains this to us.
Or Kane or.
Any of them.
Any
Any of them voted for this, I want down here in
Because
front of
we
those
don't know-
pews.
We don't
But I
know who
won't-
voted for
I
it.
won't vote in the future until I have that
Yeah,
explanation.
so, yeah, right, right now, we don't know who did and who
We'll
didn't.
try
I'm not voting on any of it,
Yeah.
so.
All right.
We'll try to find out how our congressional delegation voted and try to make that happen.
Okay, all right, good. All right, now, there's a motion on the floor. Are there any questions? Everybody understand the motion?
I would also like to convey our displeasure to the rest of the counties in the Northern Neck and see what their opinions are. So if you could reach out to the other county administrators to poll their boards, because I want to ask them the same question. Are they interested in getting into the pharmacy business?
I can
That's
tell-
what they're doing.
Well,
When you vote for this.
Yeah, I can tell you from our county administrator meetings and the emergency ambulance revenue recovery board meetings that we have, nobody wants to do this.
Then we all need to say we're not going to do it and go after the people that are making the decision and stand up and raid Congress if we have to.
But hospitals, see, that it's something going on.
Maybe it's
here.
time for another
Hospitals
January
already
7th.
said, come that November, they gonna stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something deeper here.
Yeah.
The hospitals are already, here it is, June, they already said, November, we cutting you off.
I am guessing it's probably costing them a lot of money, and they say, we'll shove this off on somebody else.
Well,
guess
don't we
who's
pay for
getting it?
those kits already out of your budget?
No, they're covered by the hospital.
Yeah. So now they're pushing that cost
Well, I mean,
on
it just
us.
makes more sense to just pay for them. I'd rather keep them in the pharmacy business and pay the hospital for whatever the drugs cost.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get in the pharmacy business, because we're going to have, I can almost guarantee you, if this goes the way it looks on paper, you're going to have to hire a pharmacist.
But you're not, there won't be one to hire.
Well,
They're gonna all be taken up. It'll be a tele, what do they call them, tele-pharmacist?
well,
Well, he
Y'all
can't
know how I
manage it. He can only oversee it.
Yes.
All right,
Might be
gentlemen,
better than-
there's a motion on the floor. Any questions concerning this motion? Everybody's clear on this motion? All right, so all in favor, say aye.
I under protest.
Aye. All opposed, say
But no
nay.
more.
no, no, and no.
All right, 4 in favor, 1 against. All right, motion passed.
But Jason, the only
favor.
reason Jason did that is because he knew it was gonna pass.
I would have voted for it if it failed.
In favor of that is liberal words, Mr. Taylor. It is being very liberal to the motion because I think we're all.
I'm tired of unfunded mandates, and I'm tired of them saying that we got to do this stuff and nobody standing up and pushing back toward any of it. It's just, oh, that's what's pushed down, we got to accept it and do it. No. We got to stand up and fight. And if that means going back up to Congress and showing them who's the boss, that's what we need to do.
I agree with that.
Well, let's go. That's it. And we had Senator Warner in our palm, and we
Yeah.
can bring it up.
We didn't know.
We didn't know about it. I sure
know,
would have
that's
had
why
I known
that
about
was
it.
the perfect
I
chance.
I was reading this that night, Monday night. I was reading this. I said, you know, this is ridiculous.
I'd like to see all three of them down here together. Bring them off of their slumber over there on Melanie Lane.
All right, I'm moving on.
Can we take the $998,000 and Tryway Trail money and?
Don't mess that money. Don't mess with that.
All right. Proposed fiscal year 25 appropriations to the school capital improvement reserve fund. Mr. Gill.
Mr. Chairman, you all know that in prior years, prior boards have occasionally set aside a penny of specific fiscal year real estate tax revenue into this school capital improvement reserve fund, kind of a savings account to help fund various school capital improvement items. Most recently, that reserve fund was used to help offset change orders on the middle school renovation project. The board approved and appropriated one penny of the FY24 real estate tax revenue into the savings account back at its February meeting. It's a budgetary thing. It has to be approved every year. I know Supervisor Lee had intended on bringing this up when you all adopted the FY25 budget. And I think it was the day after the meeting, he called me and he said, I forgot about the penny, and I said, I did too. So we're bringing it back before you all now tonight to see if it's the board's desire to set aside a penny of the FY25 real estate tax revenue into this school capital improvement reserve fund. It will help towards change orders for the new school project. And if there are, if it's not used for that purpose, it can sit there to accumulate for future capital improvement items. And one penny is $381,888.
Okay, gentlemen, you've heard that. Any questions? All right. I'll obtain a motion.
I move that we set aside the one penny for the fiscal year for the school savings account.
All right, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
We're
right,
going to need several pennies for a drug account soon.
motion passed unanimously. All right, Mr. Gill.
The last consideration item, Mr. Chairman, each year after Betty does the end of June check run, I get her to print me the revenue and expenditure summary for the fiscal year to see, what departments may need supplemental appropriations. And as Matt stated earlier, instead of coming with multiple smaller supplemental appropriations, I've just found it easier to do this. Last year, you had 4 at this same time. Briefly going over those, the real estate assessor, it's not an increase in the contract amount. The contract was divided evenly over FY23 and FY24. He just did more of the work in FY24, so more of that contract price was attributed to FY24, and it was over half. So in other words, he spent about $100,000 less in FY23 and $100,000 more in FY24. The sheriff under law enforcement, it's $297,000 and change. It seems like a large number. It wasn't that large a few weeks ago, and I just learned today from our accountant, Paul Lee, that there was an auditor entry. The auditors were here back in the middle of June. There's been a Gatsby change that requires, and Mr. Easy may know more about this than me, requires leased vehicles to budget and expend the entire amount of the lease in the year it's incurred, not just the lease payment. And that's what we've been doing over the past several years, just budgeting the lease payment. So when you put the entire leased debt in the year it was incurred, it increased that budget by $111,000. So $111,000 of that $297 is basically a paper number to satisfy that new Gatsby requirement that the entire leased amount be budgeted in the year it was incurred. The rest of it is part-time and overtime. You've heard Sheriff McCraney talk to you about how we have an increasing number of court cases, and he has to have bailiffs there for security. Other items, telecommunications, convention and education. The fuel, I can't really apply all to him because the tanks cover all of our county vehicles. but it's just under the sheriff's budget. So that explains that. Emergency medical services, Matt is here. He can, he's overtime and part-time, I've got a number there of 95,000 and change. You all know he's been down 2 full-time positions, I think the whole time he's been chief, even though we budgeted for 14, and now in the next budget, we've got 15, I believe, full-time positions budgeted for, and so overtime and part-time eats him up as well. And the last item is sheriff under the jail, the corrections, 32,000. Again, they had some overtime and part-time issues, but the bulk of that is food supplies. And the reason the food supplies are over budget is because of the number of inmates. They have an average daily.
Cost is high.
They have an average daily population that's much higher than it's been, and so there's overruns there. So the total requested here for FY24 is $524,069.06.
All right, any questions, gentlemen? If none, I move we approve the request supplemental appropriations of $524,069.06. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passed unanimously. Okay, Mr. Gill?
Well, first thing is board reports. Did you all have any?
Okay, that's right. Any board reports?
I would just mention that we've got the Windmill Point groundbreaking coming up potentially, and we were talking about naming the parks and stuff, so we should start kind of kicking around some names and ideas for the county parks. We're coming up with a process to do that.
Any other board reports?
Yeah, I'd like to make 2 appointments. First one is reappoint Sandra Smiley to the Historical Resources Commission. And the second one is to appoint Alan Rock to the Social Services Board.
Okay, I had a moment of, all right. Alan Rock. Okay. All right, you've heard that appointment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passed unanimously. All right, any other board reports? If no other board reports, and county administrator report.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to start out by passing this off to Assistant County Administrator John, because you may have noticed that we early on had both of our interns in the audience. I think Kayshawn may have had to leave halfway through the meeting, but Ashton is still here, so I'm going to let John introduce him to you again and to speak a little bit about what they've been doing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I told you last month that the county is piloting an internship program along with Lancaster County High School. This internship program follows guidelines from the Department of Labor on such programs. We're doing this in the hope that the county and the town of Kilmarnock can set an example of providing career pathways and soft skills to make our students workforce ready. We took on 2 interns, Kayshawn Davis and Ashton Molyneux. Ashton, would you stand up? Ashton and Kayshawn have been here for about a month. The purpose of them, that I had for them, was to shadow county government in each department over the course of the 2 months that they're going to be here. I extend my deepest gratitude to the staff of the Planning and Land Use Department, Olivia, Brett, Cassie, even Kelsey, for taking them this first month and showing them the ropes. That's a good portion of what we do as a county, and they've had the benefit and pleasure of being able to be part of a oyster restoration project. They attended the Triway Trail event. They've gotten a good dose of what that department does, and as they move on to other departments, they're going to be taking on their biggest task of the summer, which is digitizing all of our past tax records up to current, so that when Marlon starts her new software program, we will have those digitized to be able to include and make forward-facing. And it'll also save a ton of staff time in that department from having to go through paper records. They'll be able to query those records. So that's their big next task as they set forth in that. And I've given them a little smattering of economic development in there and what I do. But anyway, many thanks to them, and they've been a great asset to us for this first month. and we look forward to rounding that out over the next month.
Let us know when you want to go on some constituent meetings.
And I will say, they've had a chance to attend Wetlands Board meeting, BZA meeting,
BZA.
Planning Commission, and now Board of Supervisors. So they're getting a good taste.
And yeah, they've attended a CBRAC meeting, or at least Ashton did, because he was, vacation was on vacation, and they'll attend an EDA meeting, so.
And I'll invite you to a town of Irvington meeting.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend going on. And I believe Mr. Tony Spencer is going to take them for a couple of hours one of these days this next month. So show them around the courthouse and what they do there.
Good job.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Ashton.
Mr. Chairman, just an update on the Board of Equalization. They've held, I think it's 9 meetings, isn't that right, Crystal, through May. They don't have any more meetings scheduled right now, but I think you have 3 or 4 people. And once we get a good number of people, we'll probably schedule another meeting for them. They've issued 219 orders. Out of those 219, 4 have actually been increases. 26 were no change, and the bulk, 189, were decreases. The net result of the decrease is $13,615,700. So that's where the Board of Equalization stands.
Let me ask a question. Before you gave us a report, I think there was a decrease. Now there's an increase. Has it?
No, it was, it's a decrease, yes, and this is a decrease. It's a larger decrease. I may have said increase, but it's a decrease of the overall value of the taxable value in the county of $13,615,700 based on their 219 orders. But when you look at the county has, 14,700 parcels, that's still not a large number, of orders. So. The last thing I want to bring up is earlier this week, or maybe last week, Richmond County enacted a burn ban. And so Chief Smith and I have been talking this week about the possibility of Lancaster doing the same. Thankfully, we got some beneficial rains last night, and we can probably push this off a little bit. But if it does turn really dry again, Matt has prepared a declaration for a burn ban. It would be handled similar to the emergency declarations that are put in place during tornadoes, hurricanes, things like that. Your Director of Emergency Management, Mr. Supervisor Smith, would enact this, sign off on it, and then you all would ratify it at your first meeting after it has been enacted. So if it does turn dry again and really hot, then that's something that we may do in the coming weeks.
Yeah, would there be a ban for certain hours during the day?
Could you give us a copy of that
24
letter?
hours?
We can give you a copy of that. Matt, you want to take that one?
Like,
One
what
of
was
the things-
the time
Hey,
frame?
hold on. He didn't answer my question. Wait until he answers my question. Is that a ban just for certain times during the day?
No, that's a full ban.
It's a full open-air burning ban.
Okay, now y'all ask your question.
Well, mine would be the time period. Is there a time period on
The
it?
time period is until ever it's chosen
That we
to
decide
rescind.
Yeah.
to, take it off?
It can last for a week.
Yeah, if we hadn't gotten that rain last night, then we,
But see, that's what I was gonna talk to you.
Yeah.
You know, everybody didn't get that rain, so I'm wondering how you all gonna handle that situation, because
Yeah, well,
every piece of the county didn't.
I know, I
wasn't
mean,
treated equal.
at this end, I know it was like a half an inch. At the lower end, it was more. So,
Let's sign it. Let's get it banned right now.
I think the major thing we were talking about too is you got 4th of July coming up, so this would ban all your firework displays.
yeah,
Well, let's not do it.
Definitely not doing
Yeah.
that, because people will be.
that's right.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
do it later.
Yeah, and Matt has been talking to the fire chiefs, and before last night's rainfall, they were in favor of doing this right now, but I think you've talked to them again today, and everybody's okay after the rain last night, holding off on this.
Yeah. And we've never done this in the past, and I kind of triggered a conversation with the rest of the northern net counties as well, but people have done this, but there's never been a plan to enforce it or how you would enforce it if the situation ever arises. So we were able to work with forestry, who cannot enforce a local ordinance, but they have dealt with this enough. They were able to kind of guide us to some different laws that at least allowed us to do it. So what would happen if, and the intent is really just to make awareness and try to get people to reconsider burning, because it's strenuous on the first responders who are out there, especially in high heat conditions. And you have the high potential that it could spread and affect other people as well as the property owners who are burning. But if any action were ever needed, it would need to be enforced by our local patrol deputies with the sheriff's office. There was still some questions on whether or not town units would be able to enforce it. So I think the plan would just be to have that sheriff's deputy respond to the brush fires. And then if any legal action were to be taken, it would have to be enforced by Mr. Cornwell. Tony Spencer said he cannot enforce any local ordinances. So, but at least we have that identified and do have a plan if we ever do need to do it.
I don't know if any of y'all saw it the other night on Channel 6 News, but Verona had 75 acres burn up, and I heard they arrested a juvenile had a brush burning pile or something that started it. So it doesn't take but a little bit.
They issued a ban for that county.
Yeah. So it's as bad as I've seen it in a long time as far as from the farming end of it, so.
But we'll keep an eye on that, and like I said, if it's needed, we'll enact it and then get you all to ratify it at your first meeting after.
I heard I think Northumberland added it too now.
They did?
Yeah.
All I know
It
for...
was on the radio today. Richmond and Northumberland was on RAR.
All right, well, all I know for sure was Richmond County,
Yeah.
So,
I didn't see Northumberland either.
yeah.
Okay.
One last thing, I want to back up a minute, because I know you and I had spoken about this, to board appointments. I know you had mentioned a desire to reappoint Andy Ranson to the Wetlands Board. And so, yeah, I mean...
I haven't talked to him, so I'd like to call him before.
Oh, okay, but
If
we know...
Do we know he's okay with it?
Yeah.
All right, then I move we reappoint him to that board.
Yeah.
Okay, you've heard that motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. He's appointed.
That's all I have.
Unanimous vote, he's appointed. All right, gentlemen, unless you all have anything else, I'll entertain an adjournment motion.
I move to adjourn.
All right.